Hello everyone, welcome to Season 2 Part 3 of What If Naruto Was More Like His Father. Anyways, enjoy. It had been almost 2 hours since they left from Suna, and while Naruto hid it well, the heat of the desert was starting to annoy him. He had seals inscribed on his clothes so that they kept him hot or cool depending on the surroundings, but there was nothing protecting his head. Not only that, but his eyes were constantly squinting due to the intense light. He wasn't the only one suffering. Even though his outfit was relatively loose, Niji's clothes were sticking to his skin due to the sweat. Sakura was sweating as well, but she was toughing it out with a scowl on her face. Tenten was wiping her face with her sleeve every once in a while. Kakashi was suffering in the back, needing Guy's support to walk, having exhausted himself with Kamui. Naruto wondered if Kakashi really should be using that technique, considering it tired him out with just a single use. The only ones who didn't seem to have any problems were Temari, who was used to making trips in the heat, and Lee, who was better left unexplained. That spandex seriously couldn't be that comfortable. Naruto turned his head to glance back, a few snickers escaping him. The others copied him, varying amounts of amusement appearing on their faces as well as they watched the drama behind them. Guy's frustration was mounting by the second as he was forced to go practically at a snail's pace along with Kakashi. The silver-haired Jonin, on the other hand, chuckled nervously as Guy began to literally growl in agitation. The energetic taijutsu master wasn't used to moving at such a slow pace. Thanks for carrying me, Guy. The Mangekyo Sharingan takes quite a toll on my body, you see. Kakashi's ever-lazy drawl, now even more enhanced by his exhaustion, snapped something in Guy. That's it. That was the cue for Kakashi to begin panicking. W8 Guy. But Guy had already thrown Kakashi into the air, only for the copy ninja to land right on his back. So intimate, I guess they're closer than I thought. Sakura deadpanned. Naruto had to press his fist into his mouth to prevent the snickers escaping from becoming full-blown laughter. This was way too precious. That looks like a fun ride, Kakashi. Naruto full-heartedly teased the man. Kakashi's glare could have scared off a full-grown tiger if he hadn't been in such a pathetic condition. Sakura looked a bit green though, pressing her palm to her forehead. Please don't say such things, Naruto. The images are hard to get rid of. Kurama was howling in laughter in Naruto's mind, who himself was having trouble containing himself. Temari looked a bit green like Sakura, thinking to herself. 2 years in the leaf and I'm still discovering new things every day. Niji and Tenten were looking incredibly exasperated, no doubt used to the hyperactiveness and weird actions of their sensei. Kakashi spoke through gritted teeth. Naruto, get me off his back. Now. Not to worry, Kakashi. Guy cheerfully maintained, adjusted Kakashi on his back. I'll carry you everywhere if you need be. Naruto honestly thought that his stomach would burst from holding so much laughter within. It wasn't helping at all that Kurama wouldn't stop laughing. What he was about to say next wouldn't earn him any favors with Kakashi, but it would be so much fun. It had been so long he had played a good prank. Now we can travel much faster, Guy-san? Guy's answer was an ecstatic shout. Yes. Let's go. With that, Guy ran forward with a burst of speed that left a dust cloud behind him. Naruto turned to look at the one person who was happy with this development. Lee had his hands curled in fists, head bowed and trembling. When his head shot up, his eyes were swimming with tears. What youth! Their vigor is overflowing under the hot sun, which only fans their flames of youth. Come Niji, let us also bask in our youth. Lee was the second streak of dust. Idiots, the pair of them, Tenten sighed, shaking her head. Naruto took a deep breath, placing his hands on his hips. At the rate they're going, the Hokage is gonna wonder what happened to the rest of the team. Sakura slumped a little. I really don't want to sprint across the desert and the forest. It's alright, you don't have to. Naruto placated her. In fact, you don't have to move at all. What are you talking about? Niji questioned with an eyebrow raised. Naruto placed his palm on the ground. I marked the gates of Konoha. We can simply flash there, he explained with a grin, easily tracking the dynamic duo with his sensing. He pushed his sensing further until his mark on the gate was within his radar. But aren't you out of range? Konoha is quite far away right now, Tenten murmured worriedly. My senses have only improved in 3 years, Tenten, Naruto assured her. Temari smirked as she knelt beside him. Then you already have the mark in your sights, don't you? Her answer was a smirk. She then stood up. Then what are we waiting for? Grab on. Wait. Naruto's command stopped everyone in surprise. He then elaborated, speaking in a whisper as if disclosing an important secret. We need to have the perfect timing. XXXXXXX. Guy crossed the gates, coming to a halt. He pointed his index finger towards the sky in a gesture of victory, not even noticing that his head slammed into Kakashi's chin, knocking back the man painfully. First. Not quite. He turned around, eyes widening in shock when he saw everyone except Lee sitting against the wall. They looked quite comfortable, meaning that they had arrived quite some time ago, and were waiting for them. Naruto was the one who spoke, standing up. The other followed the suit. We have been waiting for quite some time, Gai-san. Kakashi was glaring with every ounce of rage that he could muster in his exhausted state. He knew exactly what the blonde had done, and was cursing up a storm in his head. Naruto caught his eye and winked, telling the man that the blonde knew exactly what he was thinking. Guy was completely floored, never having imagined that he of all people would be the last in a race. In his shock, he didn't even think what had actually happened. A shout distracted everyone as they turned to the gates, seeing the last of group arriving. Lee raised both of his hands, shouting in a mix of victory and defeat. SEC-. Then he noticed the group staring at him. And? Naruto nodded, completely serious. Now that everyone is here, let's report to the Hokage. He then set off, with the others following. Niji was the last, but only so he could pat Lee on the shoulder. Sorry Lee, but you were last. The Hyuga kept his poker face up until he was walking side by side with Naruto. He chuckled, I have to say, that was quite brilliant. Naruto smirked in response. A good prank requires timing, my friend. Eventually though, he will know what happened. He's not a complete idiot. Thanks to you, they will now drive me and Tenten up the wall with all the extra training. You're welcome. XXXXXXX. Ah, now this is what I call a soak, Temari sighed happily as she sunk in the jacuzzi, the hot water soothing all her muscles. How come you are so tired? Naruto questioned curiously. Temari shook her head. Not physically. All that stress of Gaara almost dying, she understandably hesitated a bit, really had me in a pinch. Naruto moved forward, putting both his hands on either side of Temari. He leaned in, putting fleeting kisses on her neck. He asked her in a suggestive tone, then perhaps you would like a massage to unwind? Temari smiled as she pretended to think about it. It doesn't sound like a bad idea at all. Naruto's hand started drifting down. Then what are we waiting for? Because we need to talk. Naruto stopped his advances, slowly leaning back to see his wife's serious eyes. He drifted back to his end, deciding that massages and sex could come later. What do you want to talk about? Temari seemed hesitant, but she took a deep breath and spoke. I know that the Akatsuki are a mercenary/terrorist organization that wants to collect all the bijou for some nefarious purpose. This organization is made up of S-rank missing nin, right? Naruto nodded, motioning her to continue. To Konoha's knowledge, 5 people have been identified as a part of that organization. Naruto shook his head. Itachi, Kisame, Deidara and Sasori are the only ones that Konoha and Suna are aware of. Temari interjected. But Orochimaru is a former member of that organization, right? What's to say he still isn't supporting it? Naruto waved a finger at her. Orochimaru left the organization to pursue his own goals of destroying Konoha and achieving immortality in an Uchiha body. In fact, Jiraiya believes Itachi is the reason Orochimaru left Akatsuki. The prick tried to play smart with Itachi, and got his ass handed to him. That is why Orochimaru shifted his interests from Itachi to Sasuke. Temari had a surprised expression as she digested the new information. I wasn't aware of that. Shiten waved a hand. What I'm trying to say is, there is a probable chance that, and it might not even be true, Sasuke might join Akatsuki in the future. Naruto folded his hands. This was a serious matter. It had occurred to him as well that Sasuke might join the mercenary organization. He knew that the Uchiha was hellbent on destroying his brother, and Orochimaru won't remain in his way for long. What he wasn't seeing was Temari's reasoning. Why would she think Sasuke would join Akatsuki now of all times? Come to the point, Temari, he requested, leveling a look of utmost seriousness at her. Temari looked equally serious. My question is, what will you do if you face Sasuke, after he has joined the Akatsuki? So that's what she wanted to know. She raises a good question. Indeed. Now that I think about, I myself am at a loss to what I would do. You could simply cut off his head and end his life. It would solve most of the problems this world has been having. The suggestion was spoken so innocently that it actually became part of a normal conversation for a second. Naruto scoffed inwardly. Duly noted, though I would prefer not to do that. Then what will you do? That's the question, isn't it? Temari watched Naruto thinking, though to her it was more like he was having an inside conversation with his prisoner. It was sort of impressive that his gaze was locked onto her, and actually seemed to be focused, when instead he was chatting to a completely different person. Finally, after a long moment, Naruto spoke. I would need to speak with him in person. 3 years is a long time for someone to change, and Sasuke might have changed as well. Only by looking into his eyes will I be able to tell my answer. The answer was very vague, and it didn't satisfy Temari at all, evident by the small frown on her face. That doesn't make any sense. Naruto shrugged. Maybe not to you, but it does to me. Silence settled between them for a few moments, which was then broken by Naruto clapping once. Now that the serious talk is over. Before Temari could catch up with his thoughts, she was already out of the bath, in Naruto's arms and on the way to the bedroom. Earlier talk was put at the back of her mind as she giggled. You can't help yourself, can you? Naruto's reply was fervent as he almost tossed her on the bed. I've been waiting for 3 years. My patience is all but gone. XXXXXX. 2 hours later, Naruto was walking to the hospital with a spring in his step, whistling cheerfully. He was also feeling noticeably lighter, and thoroughly satisfied, like some sort of stress that he had been constantly under was taken off from him. 3 years worth of not having sex. He still had yet to wipe off the smile on his face that threatened to turn into a stupid grin. Temari would be feeling that ache in her legs for a while, which was why he had left her sleeping in their bed. He entered the hospital, and headed straight to the room where Kakashi was. Opening the door, he saw that the Jonin was sitting up, laying down, eyes closed. Figuring he was asleep, Naruto kept his footsteps silent when approaching the bed. He keenly observed Kakashi, and after a few moments, spoke. You can stop pretending to be asleep. Ah, you caught me. Kakashi opened his right eye, keeping the other one closed. Have you come to visit me because you were worried, Naruto? I'm touched. Naruto snorted. Don't be. I actually came to see just how much that I exhausted you. Kakashi sighed, closing his eye. It exhausts me quite much. My Sharingan drains me enough as it is. Taking it to the next level and then using it, I'm not surprised I ended up getting exhausted. But you used it only once, Naruto pointed out. I haven't exactly trained my Mangekyo, Naruto. Back in our fight, it took much time to just pinpoint my target, Kakashi explained. Maybe you shouldn't use it if only a single use tires you out, Naruto murmured. Kakashi smiled. It's simply a matter of getting used to it. After I'm out of here, I intend to train my Mangekyo so I can at least last 4 to 5 before dropping. Naruto tilted his head in acknowledgement. Well, I'm out of here. Tsunade called me a few minutes ago, and I'm already late. See you later, Kakashi. XXXXXXX. Tsunade had sent a summons 15 minutes ago, but she would hopefully forgive him for being late. He reached the Hokage Tower, waved to the guards and then ventured inside, absently checking over what everyone was doing. Some people were just standing around, talking with each other. Most were just carrying around paperwork, and he spotted 4 people playing cards not so discreetly under the pretense of doing paperwork. Naruto smirked before he quickly moved up the stairs. Walking briskly, he arrived right outside Tsunade's office and knocked thrice. Come in. He opened the door, and immediately took account of who was in the room. There was Sakura, Shizune, Tsunade facing the window with her back to him, and then there was Gigi. His mouth automatically stretched into a smile on seeing him. He hadn't changed much in 3 years, except he was far more relaxed than Naruto had ever seen him. Guess retirement does that you. Tsunade turned around, scowling at him. You're late. What the hell was it that took you so long? Naruto gave a short bow. Apologies, Tsunade-sama. I was going under some therapy. Sakura quirked a brow, as did Shizune. You need therapy? For what? Naruto's grin stretched out in full force. If you really want me to tell you, it goes something like dash. Actually, we don't need to know, Hiruzen hurriedly intervened, knowing exactly what Naruto was going to say. 3 years with Jiraiya, it was hard not to pick up when some perverseness was about to come into play. Naruto was obviously going to speak something that would terribly embarrass the ladies in the room, and Tsunade would probably throw the desk at him. He really didn't want his late sensei's desk to be smashed to pieces. Naruto's grin dropped. Spoil my fun, why don't you? Then his demeanor turned serious. What is it that you called me for then? Tsunade turned to face him fully. Naruto, Sakura revealed to me some information given to her by Sasori of the Red Sands before he died. Seeing him silent, she continued. Sasori revealed to Sakura, just before he died, that he had a spy in Orochimaru's ranks. 6 days from now on, at noon, Orochimaru will be there. Naruto said nothing, but inside, he was sighing. I know what she's going to say next, and I can't fault her. But I can't be the only one who sees this as wrong on so many levels. You're not. Information is like food in your world, and you humans are the greediest of the animals. You can't help but eat it, uncaring if it is good or bad. Naruto ignored his partner's ranting. Which team are you sending then? Sakura has volunteered to go, Tsunade answered. Naruto took careful note that Tsunade used the word volunteer, instead of requested. Even though Kakashi is out of the commission, Team 7 can be ready to go with a replacement team leader, Tsunade elaborated further. Of course, if you choose to go, you might get a bonus as well. Naruto said nothing for a moment, keeping his hands in pockets. He thought carefully about it all. He knew what bonus Tsunade was hinting at, and he fought back a scowl. This mission could possibly give them some information on Sasuke's whereabouts. His mind flashed back to his earlier conversation with Temari. It was highly unlikely that Sasuke was a part of Akatsuki right now, but the question still came up. What would he do if he came face to face with Sasuke? You could just kill him. Naruto didn't reply. He wasn't sure of his resolve. Laws dictated that the missing nin should be killed with extreme prejudice, yet the small part of him that still considered Sasuke his friend, and not beyond saving, wanted to bring him back home. What should he do? Maybe, I could just beat him black and blue like last time, and then bring him back. While I would prefer you kill him, this is not an entirely unpreferable alternative. I look forward to your showdown, Naruto. That decided, I need to confirm one thing before I agree to this mission. I agree to this mission, Naruto answered at last. But before everyone could take his statement as an unconditional agreement, he spoke once more. But I need to check a few things first, if you don't mind? Tsunade didn't outright show it, but she was a bit confused. Sure. What is it? Before she'd even finished speaking, Naruto turned and stared Sakura right in the eyes. The sudden scrutiny caused the girl to flinch a little at the intensity of his stare. He wasn't glaring at her, but she felt like he was searching for something in her eyes. After a few moments, she began to fidget, a sign that she was beginning to get uncomfortable under his stare. What is it, Naruto? Sakura, he began, fully turning to face her, I need your word that you would be able to do the right thing when the time comes. That statement brought a wave of confusion in the room, since there was a lack of context in his words. However, Sakura sensed a certain depth in his words, and her voice was cautious. What do you mean? There is a chance that you will meet our former teammate on this mission, and I am well aware of how you have feelings for him. Will those feelings interfere in the mission should we be required to kill him? The question surprised everyone in the room. No one expected such a question to come out of Naruto's mouth, who was well known for his fierce loyalty to his comrades. Sakura's eyes had gone wide with shock, and she had barely kept from gasping. She knew that Naruto didn't want to kill Sasuke, evidenced by how he had brought him back to the village alive, albeit barely. But looking in his eyes, she found an unwavering resolve. She found it hard to believe that 3 years had changed him so much that he was willing to kill his former comrade now. She couldn't see a doubt in his eyes. What she was unaware of was that the resolve was to do whatever was required of him. Should the situation arise, he would have to steel his resolve to do what was necessary. Even if it meant killing Sasuke. But in 3 years, Sakura had changed as well. There was a reason that Tsunade had agreed to take on her as an apprentice. Tsunade had begun teaching her the secret to her super strength technique, and in turn Sakura had to promise her that she would get rid of any feelings that she had for Sasuke. I will not have any of my shinobi sympathizing with a known traitor, were her exact words. At the time, the request was like a hammer straight to her heart. Sakura had been forced to evaluate her feelings for the Uchiha, and as painful as it was, she had come to conclusion that she didn't truly love him, as she originally believed. She was infatuated, she was obsessed, but never truly in love. She had been living in a fantasy world back then. Tsunade had ripped off the pink-tinted glasses from her face, showing her the reality. Sakura had been forced to admit that Sasuke was not who she believed he was. He only had one ambition, and he didn't care who got caught up in his path. The last straw was when Tsunade told her that Sasuke had been completely willing to kill Naruto. Naruto hadn't mentioned it in his report, but instead chose to tell Tsunade. Naruto had to escape a Chidori to the heart. That was the strike that killed the last of the feelings she had for Sasuke. From then on, she trained hard to become a kunoichi who could actually be useful in the field, instead of having to rely on her teammates to get her out of dangerous spots. Taking a breath to steady herself, she replied while looking back into his eyes. They will not, because they don't exist. The succinct reply threw Naruto off for a moment, but he steadied himself. He stared hard in her eyes, looking for any sign of lie, but she stared back unflinchingly. His stare lightened, and the side of his mouth quirked up just for a moment. Then I don't need to worry, he said at last. Sakura found herself fighting down a grin. Naruto trusted her to watch his back in this mission, which was more than what she could say for when they were kids. Naruto turned to Tsunade and Hiruzen. You know very well that this is most likely a trap. Why are you authorizing this mission? Tsunade took a deep breath. We have no illusions that it's not a trap. However, there is a small chance that it could prove to be otherwise. Which is why this will only be a reconnaissance mission. You are to only meet with the spy and no more. Avoid combat at all if possible. Naruto nodded as he began to think of just how many ways this could go wrong. Orochimaru was no fool, but could he know about the spy in his ranks? The only reason he could think of Sasori having a spy in Orochimaru's village was to keep an eye on the snake. That means, the spy would have to be pretty close to Orochimaru to constantly keep track of his activities and whereabouts. Who could it be? His thoughts were interrupted when Hiruzen spoke. Since Team 7 is 2 members short, me and Tsunade have come up with a replacement. However, you get a say in the replacement being on your team, Naruto, since you are the only Jonin on the team right now. I would not recommend the refusal, however. Naruto folded his arms. You have someone in mind? More like I was offered and not in a position to refuse, Tsunade muttered, a minor scowl on her face. As for leader, maybe you can share the leadership with the Jonin I appoint. As for whom, I need a bit of time. Dismissed. Naruto took careful note of the scowl on her face as he exited the office. Whoever this person was, Tsunade was not that happy to take his help. The one person that the Hokage hates, it can't be the elders. Those old coots don't command any shinobi. But Danzo does. Ah. That solves the mystery of the third teammate. It's a root member. Think we can get rid of him somehow? She did say the refusal is up to you. I meant in a permanent manner. Naruto could almost see the grin in Kurama's answer. Never let your ruthlessness go, Naruto. As for how, let's just say Danzo really shouldn't be bringing out his rats in the open. Someone just might mistake them for an enemy. I see where you're going, partner. XXXXXXX. Tsunade stared at the door, re-evaluating her thoughts on her fellow blonde. Shizen came up to her side. He has changed, hasn't he? She questioned softly. Tsunade sighed. Not much, I believe, she answered, recalling how blunt Naruto was when he confronted her 3 years ago. I thought he would refuse the mission, considering how obvious of a trap this is, Shizen wondered. He knows this is a trap, Shizen, Hiruzen revealed, walking around the desk. And if it does turn out to be a trap, Naruto is most suited to get his team out of it. That, or he is simply going on this mission because he wants to ensure Sakura remains alive, Tsunade speculated. Either way, he must remain cautious, Hiruzen said in a grim tone. I have a feeling that something else is at play here. XXXXXXX. Naruto was walking down the streets, lost in thought about the upcoming mission. Just as he was about to turn into a lane, he paused. A moment later, he smiled upon sensing the familiar chakra signature. He continued forward until he came under the shade of a tree. It's good to see you after so long, Shino. Indeed, it was the Aburame. He wore a high-collar jacket traded in for a hooded one in the same color with the hood up, and the top he now wore under it extended all the way up with clasps to close it to just above his nose, and below his jacket to his knees, where black pants now adorned his legs and white tape disappeared under black shinobi sandals. He had grown as well. Naruto was perhaps only an inch taller than the bug user. Naruto, glad to know you were able to recognize me. His tone really hadn't changed much, but Naruto was just able to hear warmth under the robotic voice. The shades give it away, I'm afraid, Naruto revealed with a grin. He then sensed another chakra signature, his grin widening. He turned around just to see something large land right in front of him. Holy shit, Kiba! What happened to Akamaru? Kiba had changed as well. The fur-lined jacket was replaced with a black-collared jacket without the hood to cover up spiky brown hair, a mesh undershirt peeking out from above the dip in the clasped collar. Black shinobi pants covered up to his calves and zippered black shinobi sandals. Akamaru wasn't far behind. In fact, Naruto would so far as to say that Akamaru had the most impressive growth out of the rookies, despite not having seen them all. Gone was the puppy that would fit inside Kiba's jacket, and what stood in its place was an impressive hound worthy of being called an Inken. Kiba blinked in surprise before breaking out in a grin of his own. Yo Naruto! I knew it was you. Your scent has been popping up and I thought you were back, but never saw you, he exclaimed cheerfully, hopping off the dog to jog over to Naruto. They shared a handshake and hug, after which Naruto walked over to Akamaru. Actually, I just came back from a mission from Suna, Naruto informed him, scratching Akamaru behind the ears, earning a pleased growl from the dog. I'd say Akamaru has grown the most out of us all, he commented, chuckling as the dog stood up on his hind legs, licking Naruto's face enthusiastically. And you're now the tallest of us all, Kiba grumbled good-naturedly. Naruto looked around. And if you two are here, then the only one remaining is Dash. Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled as he turned around. There she was, and dare Naruto say it, Hinata was easily one of the most beautiful girls around here. She had filled out such even more than Temari, and her hair was now longer, falling to her waist, but her bangs were still cut princess style. She still wore her jacket, but it was no longer bulky as it was, showing hints of her figure. The shinobi pants were long and her Hitai 08 was still around her neck. I almost feel bad for your father, he said in a mock-sympathetic tone. She smiled and shook her head. Don't be. He manages just fine. Her voice was still as soft as ever, but it now held confidence and a pleasant lack of stuttering. The 3 years were good to her, it seemed. After speaking some more, they parted ways, leaving Naruto alone once again. He wondered whether he should head home or not, but he decided against it. With Temari asleep, there wasn't much he could do except run over some Fuinjutsu ideas. Or, I could go visit someone else. He stretched out his senses and found his target was back at his home. He changed directions and walked towards a place he hadn't visited since he was 4. Walking for 10 minutes, he arrived at his destination. It really hasn't changed much, he sighed nostalgically as he gazed upon the Sarutobi compound. The last time he came here was the first time he felt like he had a family. Gigi had brought him here when it was his birthday. He had been introduced to Konohamaru's parents, who weren't expecting him back then. He had been introduced to Asuma as well. The Jonin really didn't hate him back then, but he had no love for Naruto either. He kept his interactions with Naruto neutral, which his 4-year-old self was grateful for. He approached the guards at the gates of the compound. I'm here to see the Sandaime. Is he available? He returned quite recently, in fact, the guard replied, escorting him inside. There were a number of people he spotted, either talking or training. Some people saw and started whispering to each other, but he ignored them. Soon, they were right outside the Sandaime's home. Naruto told the guard that he can make it from here, earning a wary look from the guard, but was eventually allowed to go inside. The inside of the house was something that Naruto always thought the old man was: simple, practical, old, warm and weary. It wasn't that the house walls were crumbling, but Naruto knew for a fact that the old man lost his wife the night he was born. His eyes flickered towards an old photo of the old man and his wife when they were young. Even in the picture, his eyes held a love and joy that Naruto had never seen. His wife, Sarutobi Biwako, had been beautiful. No doubt her loss would have scarred the old man for life. Maybe it was also the reason the house seemed weary. It had been missing one of its occupants for years. She was beautiful, the voice behind his spoke fondly. Naruto slowly turned, giving no indication that he was surprised. Gigi was smiling at him, in the way that all old people did. I know what you're thinking. You must miss her, Naruto commented, putting his hands in his pockets. Hiruzen released a sigh that conveyed exactly how old he was. Every day. He turned around and gestured Naruto to follow him, which he did. It just hasn't been the same after she died. It was like the heart of the family that kept it together broke, and with it broke away the family. Asuma took her death particularly hard, which wasn't surprising considering how he was always closer to her than me. Her death pushed Asuma further away from me. He and Naruto entered his office, and sat down on either sides of the table. He put some tobacco in and lit up his pipe, taking a long inhalation. I didn't even get a chance to bond with him again when I was Hokage once again, after your father passed away. If it reminds you of so painful times, why do you still hang that picture? Naruto asked curiously. Hiruzen smiled as he gave the answer. It doesn't remind me of just painful times. Naruto nodded and took a deep breath, suddenly wondering what to say. It had been 3 years after all, and he had matured. He could no longer ask anything without hesitation. "How are you, Gigi?" Hiruzen smiled a little more. "Better than ever." Naruto arched an eyebrow. "Really? You are 3 years older and still smoke like there's no tomorrow." Hiruzen gave a loud, heartfelt laugh. "You never fail to make me laugh, Naruto. Yes, I may be 3 years older, but I have felt decades younger ever since I gave the hat to Tsunade. In our world, people are lucky to reach my age and even luckier to retire at leisure. For me, retirement feels like I'm living in a dream." Naruto chuckled at the last statement. "I'm sure it does. It is rare in the shinobi world for people to achieve their dreams." They sat in silence for a moment, after which Naruto spoke up. "So how do you spend your free time now?" Hiruzen released a puff of smoke, leaning back in his seat. "Well, even before I gave up the hat, Konohamaru had been begging me to train him. I have been training him quite regularly since the last 3 years." Naruto smirked. "Is that right? Then he must have gotten quite good." Hiruzen gave a non-committing grunt. "He has improved, that's for sure. But he still has ways to go before he becomes Chunin level." Naruto smiled. "You have high standards, Gigi." Hiruzen snorted. "I'm the Sandaime Hokage, boy. Of course I have high standards. You think my students became the Sannin just like that?" Naruto completely agreed with that argument. "No, they didn't." "And I see that you have got quite the bingo book entry," Hiruzen said with a knowing look. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. "Actually, it was something I never expected, to be honest." "Oh? People. I didn't think that scaring a team of IWA shinobi would bump me up to SS rank." Hiruzen folded his fingers and rested his chin on top of them, leaning forward. "Would you mind telling me what happened?" Naruto smiled and shook his head. "No, not at all." Flashback. "You know, sometimes I wonder just how the hell you became a spy master," Naruto grumbled. Jiraiya scowled and turned away, barely pouting. "How was I to know that the client would double-cross us with the Yakuza?" Naruto's deadpan was impressive. "We both know you thought that the guy was shady from the start." Jiraiya shook his head. "We deal with a lot of shady clients, but very few had the nerve to double-cross us. Besides, the guy hadn't done anything significant to be on my radar. My spy network is currently being stretched almost to the limits to keep tabs on our resident mercenary group." Naruto sked, waving a finger. "You know that's a pretty weak excuse for you. Surely you could have asked me to keep an eye on him with a few of my clones?" Jiraiya turned his scowl on him. "Then why didn't you say so?" Naruto shrugged his shoulders, completely unbothered by the scowl. "You were in charge of the mission. Besides, I thought you knew best when it came to dealing with shady people, so I trusted you. Now, I'll be a bit more careful." "Watch it, brat," Jiraiya growled, itching to just pound a fist into Naruto's skull. "My greatest apologies, Honorable Spymaster," Naruto bowed, and Jiraiya could almost see the sarcasm oozing like a waterfall. Taking a deep breath, he counted to 10 and let go. Sometimes, Naruto got under skin too well. They were assigned a mission to recover a noble stolen property that someone had stolen. Turned out, the clan was practically in a war with another, almost sister-like clan over the possession of a sword that was said to never dull, no matter how many times it was used. The lesson that Jiraiya had taught him when it came to situations like these was, stay neutral if you can help it. If it wasn't your business, don't make it your business. Unfortunately, they were hired by one of the two clans to steal the sword and give it to them. Between Naruto and Jiraiya, stealing the sword was no biggie. In fact, the only interesting thing was that Naruto had to impersonate a female servant to infiltrate the other compound. A servant who had a secret affair going on with the head. He had to make it so that the female servant wouldn't get into trouble after he was finished wearing her disguise. Stealing the sword was easy, but the return was unexpected. Turned out, the Yakuza had somewhat loose lips and the head of the clan who they were working for had the Yakuza on a payroll already, and had dispatched them to steal the sword from Naruto and Jiraiya, terminating them afterwards. Konoha mission contracts had a specific clause in them. If the client were to breach the contract, the Konoha shinobi would retaliate with extreme prejudice. So Jiraiya and Naruto easily dispatched the Yakuza, went back to the trader and acted as if they didn't know anything about who sent the Yakuza after them. The guy was forced to give them the money, and after Jiraiya had finished him off. They later returned the sword from where they stole it. It was somewhat fun, but Naruto had no wish to deal with something like that again. They entered a small town and rented a room in an inn. Jiraiya went off to do Kami knows what, while Naruto decided that a bath in the nearby stream would do him some good. Grabbing a towel and some spare clothes, he set out in a leisurely walk to the stream. Finding a particularly secluded spot so that he wouldn't have to deal with the embarrassment of nudity, he jumped into the water, letting the cool water of the stream relax him. But even when bathing, he kept himself aware of his surroundings. And he picked up 4 chakra signatures, 3 mid to high Chunin level and 1 Jonin, converging on his location. He sighed. Can't I catch a break sometime? Not even a minute later, he jumped out of the water as a water dragon formed and tried to swallow him up. A scowl of irritation etched itself onto his face when he faced his attackers, completely nude. The first thing he picked up was that it was a team from IWA, surrounding him in a semicircle. 2 boys, 1 man and a girl, from left to right. The boys were gaping at him, and then they focused their gazes right above his head, cheeks red and clearly feeling awkward. Nothing worth noting about them. The Jonin of the group was looking at him right in the face, but the slight twitch of his eyebrow told Naruto that the Jonin was trying to not let the awkwardness get to him. Nothing worth noting here as well. The girl of the group was not even trying to look away. Her face was completely red and her eyes kept drifting downward every now and then, her expression a mix of embarrassment, rage and dear Kami. Was that appreciation? Absently, he noted that she had pink eyes, a very unusual color for the eyes. He forced any embarrassment out of his system as he tried to look as dignified as he could while being naked. What are you guys doing? His question was addressed to the Jonin, who straightened up a little. His eyes hardened and he spoke with barely hidden contempt. To kill you, Namikaze. So it was the old grudge of Yandane killed our relatives. Still, he would humor them. Maybe he could have some fun here if he played things right. May I ask why? One of the boys spoke up. Why, you know very well, bastard. Don't play dumb with us. Naruto adopted a quizzical expression as he folded his arms. No, I really don't. Would you please tell me why? Well, I actually know, but I want to hear from you guys. The girl spoke up, no longer being able to take his nudity. First put on some clothes, damn it. Naruto smirked as he held up his arms up, in surrender. Hey, don't yell at me like it's my fault. You caused me to jump out of the stream. He bent down and picked up his towel, wrapping it around his waist. Plus, I would really prefer if you kept your eyes upward. Don't think I didn't catch your glances, Ms. Pervert. A vein visibly pulsed on her temple as she flushed pink, like her eyes. I'm not a pervert, asshole. Okay, enough. The Jonin apparently had enough of the pointless conversation. He then turned to Naruto, a look full of loathing on his face. We have a score to settle, Namikaze. What score? The calmness with which Naruto asked his question seemed to push the girl over the edge. The score that your damn father leveled against us, asshole. He slaughtered 1,000 of our shinobi without a second thought. Do you have any idea what that did to the name of our village? All we are remembered for is how badly we lost to your father in the war. He tore up so many families, mine included. He killed my mother. By the end, tears were sliding down from her eyes. Naruto glanced to the others. Everyone had hard faces were raging bubbling in their eyes. He took a deep breath. This was a delicate situation, and it should be handled as such. It would be oh so easy to antagonize them, but he had to attempt to reason, even if it had almost a negligible chance of working. He looked the girl right in the eyes. "I understand your anger, trust me I do. But you must hear my argument before you attempt any action," he pleaded. The girl only clutched at her kunai tighter. "What could you have to say now?" Naruto narrowed his eyes. "First of all, it was a war. Your village was not the only one that suffered. Losses were dealt on both the sides." He held up a hand to stop anyone from shouting back. "Second, don't forget that it was your village that started the war. You forced a retaliation from Konoha. All my father did was protect his home. What you call slaughter, my father called duty. Don't think for a second that he enjoyed ending 1,000 lives and scattering hundreds of families. He did what was necessary. Would you not do the same if you were in his place? Would you not kill to protect your home?" He looked directly at the girl as he asked his questions. The anger in her eyes was slowly being replaced by frustration. Either at the way to kill him, or being unable to find an answer to his question. "And lastly, my father is dead. He has been for 15 years now, since the day of my birth. The man you wanted dead is dead, and he didn't even spend one day with his son before he died. What more do you want?" The day the news of Yellow Flash's death reached IWA, we rejoiced. The Jonin said in a low voice. We celebrated the fact that the murder of many families of the village had finally met his end. But it doesn't end there. We searched, for years. We promised ourselves that we would wipe out any speck of the Namikaze that lived, but found none. But the day the news of your identity reached us, you don't know how angry it made us, Namikaze. To think that bastard had a child. To think that he created his family, while slaughtering ours. It didn't sit well with us. Which was why we kept an eye on you, waiting for our moment. His eyes hardened with determination as he fell into a stance with the others. Now that we have the perfect opportunity, do you really think I would be swayed by pretty words from you? Do you think any of us would? Naruto unfolded his hands. I thought not. Any last words before you join your father, bastard? Naruto sighed. This grudge of yours is nonsensical. Insolent fool. It was one of the boys that shouted, throwing a horde of kunai at him. Naruto blurred away in a shuunpa, leaving an afterimage and appearing a few meters away. Come on guys, think about it. Why are you trying to kill me for something that my father did? It doesn't make any sense. Just die, scumbag. The boy who had thrown the kunai rushed at him, trying to slash at him. Naruto's eyes hardened reasoning and failed. Now was the time to make a point. He easily caught the hand of the kunai by the wrist, delivering palm thrust in the chest to push him back several feet. His danger sense buzzed, making him duck and miss a slash at his neck. He blurred in his shuunpa once more, appearing right behind his attacker, the second boy, and kicked him in the back, causing him to crash into a tree. Spikes suddenly burst from the ground, and he would have been skewered if he hadn't jumped up high. His eyes widened a fraction when the Jonin met him mid-air, with an expression of rage and a stab on the way to his heart. The stab connected, and his image burst to reveal a rock the size of a human fist. The Jonin narrowed his eyes in frustration as he landed, looking around for the blonde. Karatsuchi got up from where she had cast the jutsu, looking around desperately. The boys came back from where they had been thrown, and were looking around as well. Suddenly, the Jonin shouted as he jumped up. Duck! Everyone fell to the ground as the razor-focused jet of water slicked in an arc, cutting through all the spikes and felling them, allowing everyone a clear sight on the field once more. If not for the situation, it would have been a funny sight, Naruto in a towel, hands in a seal, confused expression on his face and water dripping from his mouth. He straightened and looked at the Jonin, annoyed. You made me miss a perfect shot. The Jonin grinned toothily, and rushed at Naruto, engaging in close combat. His movements were noticeably more polished than the Chunin, but he was a bit slow for Naruto's eyes. He caught a back roundhouse kick by the ankle, and swung the Jonin into an arc, and into the ground. He then lifted him again and threw him towards the girl who was rushing at him. You should be grateful I didn't give you third-degree burns, Naruto remarked, not at all fazed by the attacks. Kuratsuchi saw red and sped through seals. Doton, Dosakiryu. Earth style, Earth and Stone Dragon. Naruto blurred away once more at the last moment, appearing far from the IWA shinobi. He bent down and picked a kunai. TCH, this would have been a lot easier if I just had my special kunai, he muttered. What did you say? One boy shouted, hands readying a jutsu. Naruto made a surprised expression. Oh, I was just saying that this would have been much easier for me if I just had my special kunai. You know, three-pronged and a formula written on the handle. I'm sure you know of it. Kuratsuchi paled. He couldn't possibly know that jutsu, right? It was very advanced. The Jonin voiced her thoughts, shock clear in his voice. You know that jutsu? Naruto smiled, part charmingly and part mischievously. I am his son, aren't I? Then his face cleared of all expression so fast that it was a whiplash. And I have you marked. Before them, he literally vanished from his place. Not blurred, vanished. As if swished out of existence. She moved to shout to everyone to move, but she was frozen in shock, as were the others. But they moved before she did, falling forward, faces slamming onto the ground, life extinguished from their eyes. It was over in a flash. She slowly turned her neck towards where the boys were now lying a pool of their own blood. Namikaze was walking towards her calmly, blood dripping from the kunai in his hand. She wordlessly snarled and was about to move when she froze, this time for real. It wasn't shock, she really couldn't move a muscle. It felt like various rods were jammed into her body, holding her in place. Kanashibari no Jutsu, Namikaze revealed the answer to the question in her mind, now standing right in front of her. Something very useful for me in the field. He grabbed her hand holding the kunai, and gently moved it down, and she wasn't able to do a thing to resist. She felt ashamed and disgusted at herself for being so weak. First her mother gets killed by the father, now she was going to be killed by the son. I'm not going to kill you, he said, as if reading her thoughts. He then leaned in, his face right by hers, and despite herself, she blushed brightly as she felt his hot breath on her ear. Hate or not, it was undeniable that Namikaze was extremely hot and very well endowed. You are going to take your comrades and return to IWA. You will tell your Kage exactly what happened here. You instigated this fight, not me. You provoked me, and I retaliated. You fought, I won, and you lost. Here's a warning to you, from here on, if any IWA shinobi provokes me just to settle an old grudge, I will retaliate tenfold, he hissed, unknowingly causing Kuratsuchi to shiver at the menace behind the words. To summarize, back OFF, his words were literally a feral growl in her ear. He then stepped back, no sign of any rage or the menace with which he spoke. This is my first and last warning to IWA, he informed her, walking towards his clothes now. He then turned to face her one last time. Raijin no T never grants mercy twice, his eyes were flinty chips of azure ice. Remember that. He left the clearing after that, leaving her frozen. Flashback end. And the next thing I know, I have a bingo book entry, Naruto finished with a clap of his hands. Hiruzen had his eyes narrowed in thought. I see, the scars from the wounds that your father gave IWA run deep. Naruto spread his hands in the universal gesture of how does this even work? Why would they be holding out on a grudge for a dead man? Isn't it just easier to move on? Hiruzen rubbed his forehead. You must know that IWA lost a lot in the Third War, Naruto. Majority of it because of your father. Never had a hidden village suffered a loss of this magnitude in history. And wiping out 1,000 shinobi drastically weakened their military strength, which takes years to rebuild. Even now, I suspect that they still may not have replenished those numbers. It's hard to forget such things, Naruto. Naruto pursed his lips and looked down. What would he do if someone did that to him? Would he keep on hating, or would he let go? I don't know what I would do. Hiruzen gained an understanding glint in his eye. It's hard to put yourself in the shoes of the enemy to understand them, Naruto. Naruto tilted his head sideways, arching an eyebrow. Well, this sounds like something I wouldn't want to think about. They sat in silence for a few moments, each lost in their thoughts. It was Danzo who offered the replacement, wasn't it? Hiruzen looked up in surprise. How did you know? Tsunade didn't look so happy when she thought she already had a replacement, Naruto answered. Hiruzen sighed and rubbed his forehead. Yes. But every shinobi must only obey the Hokage. If some are working for him, doesn't that make him look suspicious? You could launch an investigation into him. My old friend is far too careful for that, Hiruzen revealed with a tiredness he felt every time he talked with or about Danzo. Root still exists, I'm sure of it. But we have no evidence. Naruto remained silent, not revealing about his plan to take out the Root member as soon as he met him or her. He wanted Gigi to have deniability on this. Hiruzen looked at Naruto with utmost seriousness, causing the blonde to straighten in his seat. I advise you to be careful, Naruto. Danzo wants to keep an eye on you, for what reason I can only speculate. Don't give away too much information. Naruto nodded back. He wouldn't expect anything else from the bandaged mummy. Well, if it isn't Raijin no Te. Naruto turned his head around to see a bearded man enter the room, hands in pockets and like majority of the Saratobi, a cigarette in the mouth. He waved at him with a grin. Yo Naruto. Naruto smiled, getting up to greet the man. With some smugness he noticed that he was only a little shorter in height than the bear-like Jonin. Shaking hands, he remarked, as smoky as ever, Asuma-san. Asuma snorted. Hard to leave such a habit is more like it. Naruto agreed in that aspect. Just then, his nose picked up a strange scent coming from the man. A very feminine scent. He smirked and gave him a knowing look. Well, I hope you and your team are doing well. Congratulations on your relationship. Asuma spluttered. What relationship? Naruto turned back to Hiruzen, who also had a smirk on his face. Don't worry. We can keep a secret. Asuma attempted to brush past the embarrassment. Well, I actually wanted to talk to you about something. Naruto raised an eyebrow, the smirk still on his face. Oh? Do tell. Asuma removed the cigarette from his mouth. I have trained my team pretty hard in the past 3 years. While they have gotten better, I want to put them to a test against an S-rank shinobi. We are clashing with Akatsuki now, and sooner or later they will be facing one of the mercenaries. I want to see, and for them to see, how they fare against an S-rank heavyweight. Naruto grinned, but there was a malicious delight in his grin. This is sounding more interesting by the second. I'm in. Asuma was a bit worried upon seeing the delightful grin on Naruto's face, but pushed his worry aside. Maybe he was just happy to be seeing his friends again, see how strong they had gotten. Or maybe, a small part of his mind whispered, you just signed your students' death warrants. Asuma pushed the voice away, masking how worried he was about the fight. He then asked the blonde, so when do we do this? Naruto folded his hands. I'm actually preparing for a mission right now, that's supposed to be quite a risky one. So let's do this after I return. Asuma nodded, pleased that he'd gotten what he wanted. Fine by me. Naruto then turned back to Gigi. It was nice talking to you, Gigi. Let's talk some more later. Maybe get a bowl of ramen? Hiruzen smiled. Sure. Good luck on your mission. Naruto then left the office, leaving father and son alone. There was silence for a few minutes, after which Asuma spoke. My students don't stand a chance, do they? Hiruzen just smirked. Do you believe in them? Asuma whirled around. Of course I do. There's your answer. Asuma let it go at that. His father had the annoying habit of speaking in riddles. He wasn't going to get anything else out of him. XXXXXXX. So you are proctoring the Chunin exams? Shikamaru shrugged, looking annoyed with the task assigned to him. Troublesome, but I can't complain. I can't do what I want. Naruto dryly pointed out. If you were allowed to do whatever you wanted, we would never see you again. Shikamaru looked disgruntled. Maybe I wouldn't be disturbed from my sleep every now and then. Come now, Shikamaru, it would be so boring without you. Naruto turned to see the owner of the hearty and cheerful voice. Choji had grown, both his hair and body. He wore clothing similar to his father, with the Akimichi symbol. However, the difference from 3 years ago and now was that Choji had much more muscle at his disposal under the layer of fat. Naruto grinned as they exchanged a hug. I'm sure you can manage somehow. Naruto, have you grown thinner than before? Choji frowned at his friend. My appetite is as healthy as ever, Choji, Naruto returned with an easy smile. Maybe you should eat more. You are all skin and bones, Choji chastised, pulling out a bag of chips. Naruto snorted. Compared to you I am. So what are you doing here then? I was just talking to Shikamaru about his danger sense buzzed loudly, making his head snap to the side. Shikamaru and Choji were right behind him, noticing the attack at the same time. But Naruto was already moving. Air appeared around his hand like a blade of wind, slashing away at the strange black and white creature. As soon as he slashed it, it burst into a black liquid that was ink. Naruto wasted no more time, disappearing in a flash step and appearing right behind his attacker, kunai to the throat. Shikamaru and Choji gaped at the speed which Naruto moved towards the attacker, who wore a Konoha headband. Naruto observed his attacker closely, learning whatever he could. Pale skin, suggestive of spending extended period of time away from sunlight. Barest smell of sewer air, which means he remains underground, close to the sewers. Unusual choice of clothing, unique equipment. Prefers long-range combat, hidden from the eyes, but Tanto suggests that he isn't unversed in close combat either. Approximate age, 15 to 17 years old, low Jonin level chakra reserves. Chakra is refined, which is indicative of a high level of control. You're good, he complimented, eyes narrowed. He was still highly suspicious that this guy hadn't moved one bit even after being seen. The guy turned his head and looked at him with calculative eyes, before gracing him with the fakest smile Naruto had ever seen. I knew you were fast, but I didn't think you were this fast, Uzumaki Naruto. Regards me as a stranger, or is simply unaware of my head of clan status. Fakest smile I've ever seen, eyes completely blank of emotion. Yep, this guy is Root. Now is my chance. How did you dash? I don't know how you got in the village, but you're done. With that, Naruto slashed at the throat. The guy had tried to move away, but Naruto had already frozen him with Kanashibari. Blood flowed from his jugular vein like waterfall, and his eyes showed complete shock. Naruto watched dispassionately as the life faded from his eyes. Shikamaru and Choji joined him on the roof, eyes wide with surprise and horror. Naruto, what have you done? Naruto glanced at Shikamaru, replying as if speaking about the weather. He was a spy. I killed him. Naruto found himself back in the office of the Hokage. He idly wondered whether he had really thought this through when Kurama had presented the idea. Almost immediately as the thought crossed his mind, he discarded it. It was plain for all to see that Danzo had intended to keep a close eye on Naruto, to gauge his threat level. Whether he could control him or not, directly or indirectly. Of course, Naruto wasn't stupid enough to believe that Danzo would take a direct shot at him. Danzo was called Yami no Shinobi, the Shinobi of Darkness, because he worked from the shadows. His modus operandi went completely against anyone's ethical guidelines. His father's journal had provided Naruto a deep insight into the workings of Root. And there was one thing that stood out the most. There was no shinobi more loyal to Konoha than Danzo. In fact, the man was so loyal that he was willing to cross boundaries that no one would dare toe. Now that he stood before Tsunade, Naruto wondered what the man would do. If he called Naruto out on the murder of a Konoha shinobi, Naruto was more than ready with his answer. And if he did, then he would have to answer just when did he have any authority to command shinobi. Tsunade leveled a stare bordering on a glare to her fellow blonde. Let's get to the matter. Naruto, I know that you are a very powerful shinobi, and a very intelligent one as well. Otherwise, you wouldn't have earned your bingo book entry. For as long as I have known, I have seen that you never perform an action of this level of depth without thinking it through. So I would really like to hear your reasoning of what made you kill the shinobi on sight. Danzo stepped forward, and Naruto had to commend the man. The tightening around his eyes was the only giveaway that Danzo was a little more than a bit displeased about the turn of events. Hokage-sama, I dash. He was immediately silenced when Tsunade leveled a nasty glare on him. You may only speak when I allow you to. Is that clear? Danzo? Danzo immediately bowed his head. Apologies, Hokage-sama. Her glare receded and she turned back to Naruto. Let's hear your account, Jonin Uzumaki, she prompted. Naruto nodded and out of his mouth came the story that he and Kurama had cooked up. Hokage-sama, you are correct in saying that I don't perform any drastic action without thinking it through, and that will never change. In this case, my reasoning is somewhat like this. Do you know that I have an eidetic memory, Hokage-sama? Tsunade slowly shook her head. I wasn't aware of the fact. It isn't stated in your file. Naruto expanded upon his statement. For those who do not know what eidetic memory is, I will explain. Having an eidetic memory means that everything that I see, hear, smell, taste or feel, I can recall all of that with near perfect clarity, down to the small detail. I can even recall every conversation I have been part of that has taken place years ago. What is your point? Naruto glanced towards Danzo, who was frowning at him now. The point is, the shinobi that I just killed was of my age group, 15 to 17 years old. Isn't that correct, Danzo-san? By now, Naruto could almost hear the wheels turning in the Warhawk's brain as he tried to see where Naruto was taking this conversation. Almost cautiously, as if he were stepping in a minefield, Danzo replied. Yes, he was of your age. That just gives more credibility to my story then. Naruto pleasantly smiled. Thank you, Danzo-san. Turning to Tsunade, he continued his justification. As he said, he was of my age. But like I said before, I have an eidetic memory. Anything that I see, I remember and can recall perfectly. He brought forward his right hand, almost in a questioning gesture. And trust me, Hokage-sama, every person who is 2 to 3 years older, or equal of my age in this village, I know their name and their face. By now everyone could see where this was going. Hiruzen didn't show it, but he was relieved on the inside that Naruto had managed to sort this out by himself. A glint of understanding entered Tsunade's eye, but she kept quiet, gesturing Naruto to continue. And when I saw the face of that shinobi, the first thought that entered my head was who the shinobi was, and why he was attacking us in broad daylight. I recalled every face I had seen, and came to a single conclusion: I've never seen this guy before in my life. Naruto's left hand clenched behind his back as he struggled to keep a straight face, because Kurama was full on laughing in his mind. That led to the conclusion that this was a guy that was impersonating a Konoha shinobi, and could be a possible spy. If you suspected him to be a spy, then you should have brought him in for questioning instead of killing him there and then, Tsunade countered reflectively. That was a tricky question, and needed some bullshitting. That was the standard procedure when any suspicious individual was encountered. Perhaps some deflection was required? To be honest, Hokage-sama, I was operating on instinct at the time. While anyone my age couldn't have been a spy for long, I was unaware as to what his full capabilities were, whether he had sure means of escaping us or not. Which is why I neutralized him before he could make any such attempt. There was a Juinjutsu, a curse seal on his tongue that likely prevented him from divulging any secrets. Someone has a lot of dirty secrets to hide, Hokage-sama, he replied, his emphasis on the word clear to all. Everyone in the room flickered their eyes towards Danzo, whose face remained inscrutable as ever. Inside, however, was a different story entirely. He was cursing himself for bringing this matter up in the first place. He had made it pretty clear that Sai was his shinobi, and with Uzumaki revealing the purpose of the seal, it meant that he was subject to a lot of unwanted attention from now on. He was already aware of Hiruzen giving him the stink eye in his peripheral vision. Naruto decided to put a little more heat onto Danzo. He shrugged, of course, I could have removed the seal if I hadn't killed him, and maybe you would have gotten him to talk, but no use crying over spilt milk now, right? Tsunade took a deep breath to gather her thoughts. From what Naruto had told her, it sounded like he had genuinely believed that Sai was a spy. But Tsunade knew it not to be true, for she had been introduced to him only a few hours ago, as Danzo's underling. But what she wasn't aware of was that Sai had a Juinjutsu on his tongue to keep him from spilling out unwanted secrets. She still remembered the discussion with the elders. Flashback. It was like a standoff against two opposing sides. Tsunade, Hiruzen and Shizen were sitting against the two elders, with the latter standing. The atmosphere in the room was tense, and Tsunade just wanted to get out of here and get some sake. Dealing with the old codgers was never a pleasant experience. She internally sighed. Oh, how I wish I could just pass on the hat to Naruto now that he's strong enough. But, he isn't ready. Not yet. So, what is it this time? The two elders eyed her with disapproval at the lack of her formality, not that she cared. Those two could go die in a pit somewhere and she wouldn't even bat an eye. It's about Uzumaki Naruto, Koharu opened the discussion. Tsunade and Hiruzen didn't say anything, which Hamura took as the cue to continue. From now on, don't assign him missions that have the possibility of him running into the Akatsuki, he firmly stated. Tsunade suppressed the urge to admonish the elder harshly for speaking to her like that. Who did he think he was, ordering around the Hokage like that? You know the reason, don't you? Tsunade's eyes flickered to the female elder. She was the worst of the two, always thinking as if the decisions of the elders were absolutely right. Whenever the discussion was about Naruto, these two always talked like Naruto was nothing more than a deterrent to war for the leaf. They were only concerned about the beast within, not the container, and that pissed her off. Oh yeah, she and her sensei were well aware of what Koharu was implying. Don't send him out of the village or the Akatsuki will get him. She would have snorted if not for the manners that still somehow remained ingrained in her mind. You do realize that Naruto is now a shinobi capable of defeating Jiraiya at his best, right? The eyes of the two elders widened at that. But Koharu once again reminded Tsunade just how stubborn she was. I refuse to believe that. Naruto might be a prodigious shinobi, but defeating Jiraiya is compel dash. Are you accusing my student to be a liar, Koharu? Hiruzen interrupted her with a steely glint in her eyes. Koharu swallowed as she backtracked hastily. And no, Hiruzen. It is just too shocking to believe that a shinobi who has not even reached his physical prime is capable of defeating one of the Sannin. Hiruzen receded his glare. I thought so. Tsunade fought the urge to smirk at the elders. Even retired, Sensei hadn't lost the ability to effectively shut the elders up. She continued, besides, what could we possibly gain by keeping a shinobi of his caliber confined in the village? Koharu spoke again, her voice showing signs of frustration now. By remaining in the village, the Akatsuki had no problems in kidnapping the Kazekage, right from the heart of his village. Tsunade cut her off dryly. Koharu was now visibly gritting her teeth, and that was a good sign in Tsunade's eyes. And they were successful. What makes you think they wouldn't try this again? This time, it was Hamura who spoke. Then from now on, make sure he works in a four-man squad with more skilled shinobi, and increase the surveillance on him. Koharu wasted no time by piggybacking on the argument. Furthermore, decrease the amount of missions assigned to him as much as possible, and limit the scope of his activities. If possible, don't let him leave the village at all. Tsunade narrowed her eyes at the old bat. You know what my answer is. Both the elders truly looked as if they were exhausted by explaining to her that their point of view was absolutely right. Tsunade, Naruto is not an ordinary kid. He's a Jinchuriki. Don't, Tsunade spoke right after her, fury shining in her eyes, raise your voice when speaking to me. To enforce her statement, she leveled a healthy amount of killing intent at the elders. Once they looked properly scared, she continued. I am the Hokage, and you will treat me as such. Call me by my first name again and I will revoke your authority as village elders. She stared them in the eye, increasing the amount of killing intent until it was almost suffocating. They nodded hurriedly, and she dropped the killing intent slowly. She won't allow them to push her around like they did to her sensei. Taking a deep breath to abate her anger for the moment, she resumed speaking. As to your suggestion, I can say with absolute certainty that currently, Naruto is the most powerful shinobi in this village. Do you expect people weaker than him to protect him? Tsunade glared at the elders, getting frustrated by the second. He will operate in a 4-man cell anyways. And I won't keep him confined in the village. He is one of the very few, no, the only ninja in our village who can kill Akatsuki members without risking much of his life. You know the power of Hiration, don't you? The elders and her were locked in a glaring contest until Hamura sighed. If he does get taken, what will you do? Tsunade didn't even hesitate for a moment before giving her answer. Naruto won't be beaten. But if it does get to that, then I will put my life on the line as the Hokage. Tsunade had a triumphant glint in her eye when she saw that the elders looked defeated. She was about to declare the meeting over when Koharu spoke up once more, a cunning glint in her eyes. But, in exchange for your conditions, you will use the shinobi that we select in order to complete their 4-man cell. Tsunade had a bad feeling about what she was about to hear next. She already had a person in mind to fill the incomplete squad, but she had to listen to the elders at least sometimes. Otherwise, they would keep hounding her until she gave in. Any and all sense of triumph left her in a sigh. Fine. Come in, Danzo. Flashback end. Long story short, Danzo had put forward Sai, someone he claimed to have personally trained. While there was no mention that he was from Root, Tsunade knew better than to fish around. With Kakashi incapacitated, she also had to look for another leader for the team. But now wasn't the time for that. Naruto's account tells me that he genuinely believed that Danzo's suggested shinobi Sai was a spy in the village. Naruto, you're free to go. But don't repeat this action in the future, Tsunade warned him. Danzo stepped forward, his eyes showing frustration. Hokage-sama, are you really going to let him off with a slap on the wrist? He murdered my subordinate. Naruto frowned, then refuted the claim calmly. Murder is premeditated. But, a sly glint came in his eye as he eyed the elder. I wonder just why would you put a Juinjutsu on your own subordinate, Danzo-san? Then his eyes narrowed, and his voice turned suspicious. Maybe you just didn't want him divulging the secrets that Root still exists? The question was more than enough to calm Danzo down. Root was disbanded years ago due to Sandane's orders, Uzumaki-san. He was simply someone I trained to be one of my personal guard. All the people in the room except the elders collectively held back a snort. Only one thought went through their heads. That is the biggest load of horse shit I've heard. Naruto flippantly shrugged. Whatever you say. He then turned to Tsunade. Any further orders, Hokage-sama? Tsunade frowned and nodded. Yes, you are to meet your new teammates in half an hour, in front of Training Ground 7. I'll pass along any further details relating to the leadership of the team. Don't be late. Naruto nodded sharply. Hi, Hokage-sama. Making a half-ram, he was gone in a shunshin. Tsunade finally let the wide smile she had been holding back for the entire meeting blossom on her face. Well, this was a very upsetting turn of events, she said, not sounding upset at all. The elders especially looked crestfallen. Before anyone could speak, Tsunade did. She wasn't going to give them a chance of outmaneuvering her this time. This would have been a setback if I didn't have a contingency plan. The elders looked up, confused. Contingency? Tsunade nodded cheerfully. Yes. A contingency named Uzumaki Haruto. The elders immediately protested. Tsuhokage-sama, you can't. We don't know if he could be trusted. Tsunade held up her palm, stalling all complaints. What you know or don't is irrelevant. Naruto has given me his word that Haruto can be trusted, and that he will personally take responsibility if anything happens. And before you say he's not qualified, she didn't even bother to hide her glee. Haruto has proved himself to be a highly capable chunin just last week. And I was planning to put him on the team anyway before being persuaded otherwise by the elders. Danzo knew that he had lost his play on this. He himself had kept tabs on the other Uzumaki, and had to admit, the boy was just as good with his chains as Kushina, if not better. He had debated on whether he could somehow convince him to join the route, but later discarded the idea. For every Uzumaki, family came first. And Haruto was too close to his cousin for Danzo to take the chance. If he didn't know better, and he really didn't, he would have thought that this was a masterful play by Uzumaki Naruto. Danzo. He gave no indication to his thoughts as he faced his leader. Tsunade gave him a shark-like smile. Not grin, but smile. I have no further need of your shinobi, and as such, won't trouble you anymore. You may leave. Danzo gave a short nod, and exited the office. Things were spiraling out of his hand, and he needed to do some damage control. XXXXXXX. 20 minutes later, Naruto was standing with Sakura at the entrance of Training Ground 7, waiting for their new teammates. His pink-haired teammate didn't bother to hide her curiosity when she saw him coming. Any idea who this new teammate and sensei will be? Naruto shrugged. I have no idea as well. They both stood in silence for a few moments, after which Naruto quietly spoke up, cautious and a bit hesitant. Listen, about what happened in Tsunade's office earlier. Sakura cut him off with a shake of her head. No, it's fine. I can see where you're coming from. She sighed, memories of her genin days coming to the forefront of her mind. I could never see past Sasuke, the reality of our world. I never really got serious until the second phase of the exam. All I wanted was, for Sasuke to see me just like I saw him. She sighed once more, looking a bit depressed. I used to be quite the bitch, huh? Naruto quickly spoke up, I never called you that. Sakura gave a chuckle, but it was humorless. You didn't need to, Naruto. Naruto was impressed just how far his teammate had come. Admitting your own faults was the most difficult step to overcome and improve. It was basically taking a shot at your ego and pride, and making sure they crumble to pieces before you begin to repair them. Sakura shook off the thoughts. Well, I don't ever want to think back to those days if I can help it. I completely understand. Once more, silence reigned for a few moments, and once more, Naruto couldn't help himself. But this time, it was a deceptively innocent start to his conversation. So, I never got the chance to talk to either of you, but... He leaned in with a sly look in his eyes. Did you have a good time with my cousin? The reaction was priceless. Sakura choked on air, and her face flushed deep red. As he patted her back, Naruto couldn't understand whether it was because she was choking, or whether she misinterpreted his words, or he had hit the bullseye. As she leveled out, she fiercely glared at him. What the hell are you talking about? We did nothing of that sort. Naruto gave a Cheshire grin at that. This was too good to pass up. Whenever did I say anything about that? Her face heated up even more, and Naruto pushed a bit more. My, already imagining yourself in those situations with my cousin, Sakura? You naughty girl. He leaned back to avoid the smack to the back of his head. Hey! I was kidding. Sakura was still blushing, and Naruto could actually see her veins on the back of her fist as she waved at him threateningly. Would you seriously stop? Or by your advice, I'm liable to beat you up. Naruto raised his hands in surrender. Whatever you say. I was just wondering whether you and he had a good time when you were showing him around Konoha. Naruto didn't know whether it was possible, but Sakura's blush could have rivaled Hinata's when they were genin. At once, the anger drained out of her and embarrassment took its place. Oh. Naruto let her stew in her embarrassment for a while. So, did you have a good time? Sakura nodded, not looking at him. Your cousin is really nice. Naruto smiled at her acceptance. Knowing him, he must have asked you out on a date. Sakura's head whipped so fast, Naruto heard a crack in her neck. How do you know about that? Naruto gave her a dry look. He's my cousin, Sakura. She gaped at him for a moment before sighing defeatedly. I guess he is. So you accepted? Sakura huffed, crossing her arms and looking the other way. Be baka. Who the hell asks a complete stranger out after just meeting them? But Naruto could see the pink on her cheek. Smirking, he looked up to the sky. It was obvious that Sakura clearly held some attraction towards his cousin. It was only a matter of time. My cousin is not the one to give up, Sakura. Jiraiya saw to that. Soon, Naruto felt two chakra signatures closing on their position. He grinned when he recognized one of them. The other one was distinctively unfamiliar. Two people appeared in front of them. One was Haruto wearing a Chunin vest over a standard uniform, his headband wrapped around his forehead, and the other was a relatively normal-looking man with a Jonin vest. Naruto closely observed the latter, who was supposed to be Kakashi's replacement. He had ordinary features, brown spiky hair, coal-black diamond-shaped eyes. Stretching his senses, he tried to get a feel for this man's chakra. It was high Jonin level, highly refined, and extremely calm, and since he was standing in such close proximity, Naruto could even tell the natural affinities of the person. Earth and water. And yet, there's something more. For as long as he had been a sensor, Naruto could feel other people's natural affinities if he concentrated hard enough. The presence of more than one affinity pointed to the presence of a bloodline limit. Not only that, but the strength of both the affinities of this man was unusually high. Usually, when a person has two affinities, one is always comparatively weaker than the other. Except for himself and this guy. He was a special case. And yet this guy. Naruto decided to leave the deductions alone for now. He smiled at the man, giving no indication of his thoughts. Nice to meet you, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. You can call me Naruto. The man smiled as if amused. I'm well aware, Naruto. You can call me Yamato. The man's calm expression hid most of his nervousness, and Naruto could detect a hint of insecurity in his tone. But still. Call him? Not many people in village can match Kakashi's caliber, so where did Tsunade find a guy to replace Kakashi? The answer came to him the instant he finished the question. Umbu. ANBU were the Black Ops of Konoha. They operated in the shadows, without being seen or heard. They remained coiled like a snake and when ordered by the Hokage, sprung like a snake. They were supposed to be the best. Naruto turned to his cousin, who was grinning at him. He smiled softly. So Tsunade chose you for Team 7, huh? Haruto clearly couldn't resist bragging to his cousin about it. Tsunade-sama saw fit to promote me to Chunin after the test. She said that she was considering putting me on your team, but then someone had already claimed it. Now that he's gone, she put me back. Naruto nodded, proud of his cousin. Good for you. Haruto then turned to Sakura, whose cheeks had reddened once again. Oh, Sakura. How are you today? But not every girl was shy as Hinata. Sakura smiled back at Haruto, once she had gotten her bearings. I'm good, Haruto. How about you? The redhead looked positively delightful that Sakura wanted to talk to him. Yeah, I'm good. Being on a team with my cousin and you is sure gonna be fun. Naruto eyed the Jonin beside him, and saw him calmly observing the interaction. He wasn't even looking awkward, which usually what people feel when they are not part of a conversation. In fact, he looked as if he approved the fact that all the members of the team knew each other. With Haruto looking as if he wasn't going to stop chatting with Sakura anytime soon, and Sakura should realize it's her fault as well, Naruto knew it was time to step in. Alright you two, that's enough socializing for now. Seeing his serious expression, Sakura adopted one as well as she stood straighter. Haruto only lessened his grin to an easygoing smile before standing at ease. Seeing both of them paying attention, Yamato spoke up. First off, let's get one thing clear. You may be thinking that I'm the leader of the team, but that's only partially true. Seeing Sakura and Haruto's perplexed expression, he clarified. Usually, the uppermost rank in the team gets leadership. However, due to his Jonin rank, Naruto automatically gets a say in team dynamics. To be simple, Naruto and I will be sharing the leadership position among us. Sakura nodded sharply, while Haruto frowned a little, but nodded at last. Yamato continued, you will take orders from both of us, depending on who is present with you. As for the mission, we assemble in front of the gate in 1 hour. We are heading to the Tenchi Bridge. We intercept the spy, and bring him in for questioning. The others nodded. Yamato dismissed them, letting them go in order to pack their supplies. Naruto immediately flashed back home, leaving Haruto and Sakura. The former had eyebrows raised, wondering just what put his cousin in such a hurry. Well, he broke the silence, you heard the boss. See you at the gate. With a ram sign, he disappeared into a shunshin. Sakura sighed as she turned and took to the roofs. I really need to learn the shunshin no jutsu. XXXXXXX. Naruto arrived in his home and kicked off his sandals, going straight to his study. He took the large, travel scroll leaning against the wall in the corner of his study and spread it open. Pressing his palm against one of the kanji, he pushed chakra into it. In a small puff of smoke, a normal-sized scroll came out. He tucked the scroll into a belt loop and closed up the larger one. His organizational system was rather simple, no need to gather and pack up supplies for every mission if you can just keep a scroll prepared beforehand. When the time comes, just grab the scroll and be on your way. God bless Fuinjutsu, he murmured sagely as he placed the scroll back in its place. Exiting his study, he locked it and went straight to the kitchen. Temari was at the stove, flipping a pancake and humming a tune. She was wearing a loose shorts and t-shirt. Naruto smiled and came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Hey! Temari smiled as she leaned back against his chest. Hey! Going on a mission? Naruto sighed. He knew he was addicted to his wife's touch, and it made it difficult to let go at times like these. Yeah. Pretty important one. Oh? Temari absently asked as she put the pancake in a plate. It's S rank. Temari froze just as she was about to pick up her plate. Then she turned around with a grim look. Akatsuki? Naruto frowned a little. Technically no, but yeah. It could be. She put her hands around his neck and drew him into a hug. Be careful, alright? Naruto returned the hug gently. I will. They stayed like that for a few moments. Kissing, making out and sex was great and all, but there were times when Naruto just enjoyed the gentle touch of his wife. Sometimes, just a hug was enough to express what one felt. This was one of those moments. But still. Can I have a kiss before I go? He was a special case. Temari giggled softly. We're married, Naruto. You don't need permission to kiss me. Naruto grinned as he closed the distance between them. I'm glad for that. Her lips tasted of sugar as he molded his with her. His right hand went to the small of her back and the other to the back of her neck, pulling her close and deepening the kiss. Temari sighed as she rubbed his cheek where his whisker marks used to be. The area was still sensitive, and a pleasure point for Naruto. As she predicted, he purred low in his throat, his grip on her tightening. Soon, the kiss came to an end and Naruto pulled back reluctantly, because they needed to breathe sometime. Naruto stepped back, but not before pecking Temari's cheek one last time. I love you. Bye. With that, he flashed out. Temari stood there in the kitchen, blushing and looking slightly dazed. I love you, too, Temari whispered to an empty kitchen. She then broke out into a goofy smile, picking up her plate and sitting down to eat. The pancakes tasted extra good today, she mused. XXXXXXX. As they exited through the gate, Sakura couldn't help the feeling of nostalgia. Being in a new team, no idea what teamwork is supposed to be with her current members. As they kept walking, the silence between them gave way to awkwardness. Naruto had a dry expression as they traveled. Just who said it was forbidden to talk? You know, I won't cut your tongues off if you talked, he commented to the Chunin behind him and Yamato. Haruto was immensely relieved and started speaking immediately. Being silent for a whole journey was just not his thing. He started chatting away with Sakura, who was a little overwhelmed at first, but then started to reply to Haruto's comments bit by bit. She wasn't as social as Ino, but it wasn't that she was completely out of the loop. She smiled softly as Haruto almost seemed to get animated while talking, occasionally making wild gestures with his hands. But what surprised Sakura was that he kept his voice low, so as to not bother the Jonin walking in front of them. Sakura knew that Naruto preferred the least amount of unnecessary talking possible, and got annoyed when someone just kept talking without any need. That's surprisingly considerate. She listened as Haruto spoke in detail about the ingredients used by the Ichirakus in their ramen, believing that he would one day discover their secret. Sakura stifled her giggles with her hand. He's adorable when he geeks out. Her thoughts came to a stop as she took a mental step back. I find him adorable, cute, handsome. Taking a few moments to deliberate, she ultimately conceded. He's not that bad looking. And he is nice to be around also. While Sakura was lost in her thoughts, Yamato was carefully observing his new team. When Tsunade asked him to be the leader of Team 7 in place of Kakashi, Yamato admitted that it floored him. He had a high amount of respect for Kakashi-senpai, who was a legend during his ANBU days. He was a damn good leader of their ANBU team, and when he retired, Yamato was given his position. He knew much about leading teams, having led one of the most successful teams in ANBU for years. One crucial element about working in a team was that everyone should be comfortable enough with everyone for the team to function successfully. Right now, he could see that this formation of a team actually had potential to be the best. The relationship between Naruto and Sakura, the original members of Team 7, seemed to be well maintained, so there was no problem there. Sakura also seemed to be pretty comfortable with Naruto's cousin, given how she's been talking to him for a while now. It was also pretty obvious that the redhead had a crush on the pinkette, and while being in a relationship with your own team member was frowned upon, because it could disrupt the entire team's performance, there should be no problem if they kept it off-field. From what he knew about the Uzumaki clan, they valued family the most. Naruto and Haruto were cousins, enough said. Yes, this team will work out just fine. But while the relations between team members played an important role, their ability to work with each other did as well. Naruto and Sakura had worked together in the past, and know how to go about it. Naruto and Haruto may have worked together, but Yamato couldn't be sure. Haruto was good, no, he was better than good. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made Chunin on the first try. But did the redhead know how to work with Sakura? Yamato frowned. This team was a completely new team, and this was their first mission. They hadn't even worked out on how to work with each other. Maybe, I can get them to do a practice run. We do have 5 days, after all. They walked for a while more before Yamato suggested they rest. You guys must be tired, so why don't we stop for a while? I know a nearby place that has hot springs. Haruto lighted up at the prospect of relaxing in an onsen. I'm game. Sakura also nodded excitedly. Sounds great. Naruto smiled as he shrugged. I don't have a problem. 20 minutes later, the three males were relaxing in the onsen with content expressions on their face. Haruto sighed as he slipped deeper. Man, being in an onsen never gets old. Yamato smiled happily and nodded his agreement. This is actually a good way to bond with each other. Naruto, who was washing his hair underwater, came up at that moment. That was your goal for this onsen then, Yamato? Yamato chuckled as he rubbed his neck sheepishly. Not to doubt your bonds with your teammates, Naruto, but this is a very fresh team. I just wanted to be sure. It's alright, I can see your angle. Naruto waved away the man's nervousness as he got up to get out. Haruto groaned as he covered his eyes. Man, give us a warning before you flash us with your junk, man, he exclaimed, a little more than annoyed with his cousin's shamelessness. Naruto chuckled as he wrapped himself up with the towel and got out. I'll keep that in mind. He then glanced towards the women's side of the springs. I wonder if she's done too. I need to talk to her about something, he muttered. Haruto's eyes, which were closed in bliss, snapped open as if a great secret revealed itself to him. That's right, Sakura is on the other side, isn't she? A leer worthy of Jiraiya appeared on his face. A heavy blush, which would have been light under normal circumstances, appeared on his face. Slowly, he began to move towards the women's side of the springs. Naruto sighed as he noticed his cousin start moving towards the bamboo wall separating the men's and women's bath. It wasn't that Haruto was a pervert, not at all. His cousin respected women and their boundaries. But one did not spend an extended amount of time with the biggest pervert in the nations and not pick up some perverseness. If it was any other girl, Haruto wouldn't have even entertained the thought. Naruto didn't fault his cousin. He faulted his godfather. Damn you, Jiraiya. He called down to his fellow Jonin. Oi, Yamato. Yamato turned, a bit surprised. What is it, Naruto? Naruto nodded towards his cousin. Better stop him before he gets too far. I'm going to the changing room. Yamato looked towards where Haruto was going. He closed his eyes and called out. Haruto-kun, let me tell you an interesting story. That managed to stop the redhead from progressing further. He turned back with a curious expression. What? Yamato pulled up his scary face that he used to scare his team and began. When Jiraiya-sama was a genin, he almost died once, but not in the field. He was pleased to see that the boy looked properly scared. Continuing in a tone as if telling a horror story, he resumed. That was because he did what you're attempting to do now. Haruto took a visible gulp. He didn't like where this story was going. It is said that Tsunade-sama beat him to within an inch of his life with her strength, by breaking every bone in his body. Yamato suppressed a laugh when he saw that Chunin began shaking. Dropping his face, he got out and wrapped a towel. I wonder what Sakura will do, he wondered before walking away. Haruto turned back to the wall that separated him from Sakura. Suddenly, it seemed a lot more ominous than before. There were two options before him now. Take a risk and hopefully see some goods, or get caught and get his bones broken. Yeah, right. He was smart. XXXXXXX. The next morning, Naruto was surprised to find out that Yamato was already awake. Then again, he was ANBU, he reasoned with himself. He got ready and for the next hour, he discussed with Yamato the plan for the mission. At 7 am, he looked towards Haruto, who was asleep with a bit of drool escaping his mouth. He woke his cousin up with a shake. Haruto, wake up. It's time to go. The redhead slowly opened his eye, scrunching heavily. He was in deep sleep, damn it. But if he asked for 5 more minutes, Naruto would dump water onto him. There was no snooze button for his blonde cousin. Alright, I'm up, he mumbled, sitting up. Naruto nodded before getting dressed. Yamato, who was already sitting ready, asked him to go and see if Sakura was ready or not. Naruto nodded and walked out of the room towards Sakura's. He knocked on her door thrice. "Sakura, you up?" "1 second. Naruto nodded. "Get ready, we're moving out in an hour." An hour later, they were back on the road. Their journey was slightly different from yesterday though. Haruto was explaining to Sakura how his chains work. "See, the simplest explanation is that my chains are an extension of myself. I think of them as having extra limbs. Only they feel more than that. It's like having hands and fingers at the same time," Haruto said, nodding to himself as if that made absolute sense. Sakura had the driest deadpan Naruto had ever seen on her. "Hands do have fingers," she stated derisively. Haruto backtracked, shaking a finger at her. "Not in the way you are thinking of." By now, even Yamato was glancing back oddly. Naruto didn't bother turning, he just smirked. He knew exactly what Haruto was trying to say. Haruto continued with his explanation, looking completely serious. "I can manifest a large number of chains, but the fact is, the human brain has long since adapted to coordinate only 4 limbs. So even if I manifest, say, 20 chains, I can only move them in one direction, towards one target. Get it?" Sakura gave an expression of realization. "Oh, so that's what you were trying to say." Haruto looked mildly offended, but continued. "For the longest time, I couldn't control my chains separately. It's like trying to write with both hands at the same time." Sakura looked at him annoyed. "Couldn't you have said that at the beginning?" Haruto looked confused. "But it was exactly what I said." Sakura took a deep breath and counted to 10. It wasn't Haruto's fault, she told herself. Everyone understands a concept in their own way. Haruto's just happened to be a bit unconventional. "But it's rather sweet how hard he is trying to explain it to me," she thought with a small smile. Lost in her thoughts, she almost missed the next part of his explanation. "So Jiraiya-sama had me practice writing one thing, my first name, with multiple chains at the same time on the ground. When I got that, he made me do the same thing, only this time, I had to write my surname with another set of chains at the same time." Sakura winced a little. "That sounds tedious." Haruto shrugged. "It was at first, but I got better." Soon, night fell and Naruto suggested to Yamato that they set up camp. The other Jonin nodded and together, they found a small clearing. Only when Yamato demonstrated his perception of the phrase setting up camp, was when Kurama went berserk. "Wokutan, Shichuka no Jutsu." With style, 4-pillar house. Just in front of them, a giant house made of wood sprung up. Naruto kept quiet, busy pacifying an enraged Kurama. Sakura on the other hand, chuckled dryly. "You call this camping?" Yamato himself chuckled. "It's not as grand as it looks. Trust me." Without another word, Haruto and Sakura walked inside, leaving Naruto and Yamato alone. The brown-haired Jonin looked to the blonde. "Naruto?" Naruto smirked while crossing his arms. "Mokutan, huh? Never took you for a senju." "Despite what it looks like, I'm not a senju." "I wasn't born one," Yamato denied calmly with a shake of his head. "And I was briefed, albeit very little, about your control of the Kyuubi. I was assured that I wouldn't have to worry about you going on a rampage." To Yamato's surprise, Naruto chuckled. "Don't worry, I'm not insulted. Only a little surprised that Tsunade has a contingency plan for me," he said deferentially. With that, he walked inside. Yamato wiped off the sweat on his cheek before doing the same. He had almost forgotten that he was dealing with a major political figure, and to offend those was almost tantamount to suicide. Once inside, Naruto found that Yamato was indeed right. There was nothing grand on the inside. But the fact that it was an indoor setup was more than comfortable. He removed his sandals, walked to the pair of chunin, and sat down beside Sakura, all the while calming Kurama down. The nerve of the woman to do this? "Calm down, Kurama. I'm sure she knows that I can control your power. He's probably here for a just-in-case scenario." Oomph. Just seeing would grow like that makes me want to tear the guy apart. You hated Hashirama that much? Damn treehugger handed us out to the other villages like candy. Of course I hate him. Naruto just let the fox be until he cooled down on his own. As Yamato settled down, Naruto clapped to get everyone's attention. Alright guys, time to discuss the mission. His hands rested on his knees as his tone became authoritative. Today morning, me and Yamato came up with a plan on how the meeting will go. He turned to Sakura. Sakura, I want you to give Yamato some key information on Sasori. His appearance, behavior, voice. In this team, we two are the only ones to have seen him, but you have fought him, so you might have some additional info that I don't. Yamato Taicho is planning to go as Sasori? Sakura asked curiously. Yamato nodded. The spy will be expecting Sasori. He might see through the disguise, but we'll cover any base that we can. My appearance as Sasori should put me close enough to him so that I can capture him in case he escapes. If he is a spy in Orochimaru's ranks, he will no doubt be extremely careful, Haruto pointed out. There is a high chance of probability that this is a trap, Naruto added in. Which is why Yamato will go first. The rest of his will hide as best we can, and wait for his signal. That said, just as a reminder, this mission is of reconnaissance. Our objective is to just capture. If a fight ensues, we must keep the target safe. If he is killed however, a valuable source of information will be lost, Yamato said, looking in everyone's eyes to emphasize the importance of why their target should be kept alive. Naruto overlapped his fingers. Because there is so much that can go wrong in this mission, I have come up with an addition to this plan. Yamato blinked. He didn't know about this. Naruto looked at Yamato. Before we go to the bridge to meet the spy, I'll create a barrier a few miles away from the site. It will be a barrier that will put our spy to sleep seconds after he arrives in it. The second he tries to run away, I'll jump in and flash him away. Yamato pondered over this idea. He was the one supposed to be meeting the spy, and there would be some distance between him and the team. Naruto would have to move very fast if the spy made to escape. But, this idea was actually better than Yamato attempting the capture himself. All Naruto needed to pull this off was to touch the spy, and he would be theirs. It was a brilliant strategy. Yamato nodded his consent. That's a very good idea, Naruto. So the strategy is like this, I restrain the target, and Naruto moves in and flashes him away. If a battle is inevitable, then we'll fight in pairs. The pairs will be Naruto and Haruto, Sakura and I. Naruto coughed into his fist. Actually, it would be better if you were paired with me, Yamato. If Sakura were to be paired with you, she'll be fighting close range while you'll be fighting mid-range. And while your Mokutman is good and all, something a bit more versatile would be better. Or else Sakura would just be running around, chasing her enemy. Yamato quirked an eyebrow. A bit more versatile? Naruto nodded. Haruto's chains are well capable of following the target and capturing them. They are considerably faster as well. Binding the opponent with his chains will give Sakura an easier time to knock them out or kill them. You and me on the other hand, are capable of fighting bait and lure. You and me are comparatively faster than them as well. Yamato was starting to think that Naruto should have been made the leader of this team. His ability to take into account his teammates' abilities and strategize accordingly was commendable. Not only that, but his skills as a seal master were very handy in a mission. He was starting to see why Yondaime favored the Hiraishin so heavily. Its battle applications were astounding. But Sakura pointed out an important flaw in their planning. That is good and all, but we've never fought together before. Knowing about one's skills is one thing, but working with them is completely different. Yamato nodded with approval. Well spotted, Sakura. To counter that, we'll perform a simulation tomorrow, let each other get a feel of our abilities. It's a bit out of the norm for the normal forces, but new ANBU teams often do this to enhance their teamwork capabilities. Naruto sighed as Yamato ordered everyone to sleep. He put his hands behind his head and closed his eyes. He missed his wife clinging to him. Jiraiya would be serious proud and angry with your drifting thoughts, Kurama snickered in his mind. Naruto mentally grumbled. Shut up, man. XXXXXXX. Excellent capture Haruto, Naruto. Yamato said as he rubbed his wrists. Those chains were really hard and tight. Naruto fist bumped the redhead as Sakura smiled behind them. Her abilities were not really suited for capture as much as they were for breaking the bodies of enemies. Haruto pointed out to his cousin. You know, that shadow clone decoy was a pretty swell idea. You and Sakura were pretty good at keeping him from moving too much. Naruto smiled and patted his clothes to remove any dust. Yeah, but I won't be with you next time. You can get a bit more creative with those chains of yours, you know. Haruto rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't want to accidentally maim you instead of the enemy. Naruto chuckled. See that you don't. I might be fast enough to dodge your chains, but Sakura isn't. Sakura nervously chuckled at how flippantly hinted the consequences should Haruto miss. You wouldn't do that, right? Haruto immediately shook his head. Oh no, Sakura. I promise not to maim you. Naruto inwardly chuckled at his cousin's behavior. Alright, prepare to move out. We will reach our destination tomorrow before noon. If we miss the time, this mission will be a complete failure, Yamato ordered everyone. They set out and by night, they repeated the routine of the previous night. As soon as dawn came, they hit the road fast and arrived at their destination with time to spare. Tenchi Bridge. For a few minutes they just spent time staring at the bridge, thoughts of what they were about to encounter entering their minds. It was like someone had flipped a switch. 1 second, they were cheerfully talking to each other while hopping on trees, the other they all shut up as if they had entered a completely different atmosphere. Well, Naruto broke the silence, we better decide our positions. He turned around to face the two Chunin. Alright, this is what's going to happen. First, we find good spots to hide. And by that, I mean hide good. Suppress your chakra as low as you can. Second, Sakura, you give Yamato the information he needs to masquerade as Sasori. Third, we wait. Is that clear? Hi. Naruto turned around to face Yamato. We have 2 more hours to go. I'll go and set up the barrier. Shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. You hold my spot for the time. Yamato nodded and with that, Naruto went back to the way they came from. After being sure that they were quite a few miles away, Naruto stopped. This should be far enough. He took out his sealing supplies and set to work. He created 4 tags, each with a different kanji symbol on them. He spread in a square position, each tag almost 5 feet away from the other. He took out one of his special kunai and threw it down, burying it in the grass. Inspecting the positions one more time, he nodded to himself. He took a few steps back and faced the formation. This was a delicate piece of Fuinjutsu that was created by his late clan, and required him to be extremely precise. Dog Barox Horse Snake Ram. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu Shuji no Shohiki. Uzumaki Sealing Style, Prisoner's Barrier. A light blue, transparent pyramid came into existence, reaching up to Naruto's chest. Naruto breathed out in relief upon seeing his success. This barrier was a true masterpiece of the Uzumaki clan. This barrier was designed such that it will influence the hypothalamus's control center that controls sleep. Not only that, but as long as the person remains inside the barrier will power itself by the person's chakra. After being activated, the initially amount of chakra will uphold the barrier until the prisoner is inside. Once their spy is in this barrier, the barrier will immediately start sucking out the chakra. Properly panicking, he would attempt to escape, but the catch was that if a jutsu were to be used, the rate of suction of chakra will increase drastically, weakening their spy. It will keep sucking chakra until the person is asleep. After that, the barrier will only suck out chakra at intervals. It's almost like saying that the barrier has a life of its own. As of now, the preparations are over. All left to do is to wait for the spy. Naruto turned back and was about to flash to Haruto's mark when he stopped. He turned back to the barrier and stared at it thoughtfully. A barrier in the middle of the forest was a strange sight indeed. A sly grin stretched at his lips as he took out his sealing supplies again. He was suddenly feeling inspired. Oh, I can't wait to see everyone's faces when they see what I've done. After finishing up, he packed up and flashed to Haruto's mark. The redhead jumped slightly, calming down once he saw who it was. I'm never getting used to that, he grumbled. Naruto patted his shoulder sympathetically and just walked out of the hiding spot, towards Sakura and Yamato, who were finishing up with the disguise. He worked out the signal with Yamato, marked him, and once they were done, Sakura went back to her hiding spot. It was just a matter of waiting for the man. It didn't take him much time. The guy was prompt, arriving at the other end of the bridge 5 minutes before noon. He was covered in a gray robe with hood, from head to toe, to hide his features from being seen. Naruto kept his senses active, looking out for anyone who might have followed the guy. Putting his finger on the ground, he pushed further, and came up with a result that made him frown. Now that I see, this chakra signature feels awfully familiar. And our spy has a shadow. Also, there was a certain blur on his radar, close to the other side of the bridge, but far enough to remain out of sight. Naruto pursed his lips and thought. A blur was a phenomenon when someone was using a high-level camouflage. Jiraiya had explained it to him. Whenever Naruto attempted to sense Jiraiya under the invisibility jutsu, he came up with a blur. Not good enough to identify, but enough to spot. However, if Naruto knew the feel of the chakra of the blur, he could venture a guess. It came to him in a flash. He cursed mentally. Damn, I knew this was a trap. The spy is none other than Kabuto. Putting the revelation aside, for it was too late to warn Yamato, he focused on the blur. The feeling was distorted, which was to be expected. And whoever it was perfectly calm, so there was no turmoil in his chakra. Nothing that could give a hint to Naruto. Which Naruto was thankful for, since it gave him a clue as to who it could be. Obviously, anyone who can disguise themselves in a blur to a sensor as skilled as him was highly dangerous. Someone from the Sound Village who was skilled enough to dupe sensory types. That only meant one thing: it could be anyone. Most probably, it is someone who Orochimaru sent to follow the guy to see where he was going. It could be a natural ability, knowing how much that bastard loves to experiment with various abilities, or it could be a really skilled ninja. Naruto stopped sensing and suppressed his chakra as much as he could. For all he knew, the person could be a sensor. He watched in silence as Yamato made contact, and Kabuto shifted so his face was visible to their side. He could only imagine Sakura's surprise on the other side of the road. He used his keen sense of hearing to hear the conversation. "Were you followed?" Yamato asked in the rough, dark voice of the puppeteer. "No, it's safe," Kabuto firmly replied. "How are you?" "Somewhat distorted after being released from that jutsu. Even now, occasionally, it's a bit overwhelming," Kabuto answered. On the sidelines, Sakura whispered to herself nervously. Kabuto was the Akatsuki spy all along? Haruto was equally apprehensive. I don't know who this guy is, but judging from your reaction, he's someone you knew before?" Sakura grimly nodded. "I did. And now I'm starting to think that Naruto might be right. This is a trap." A hand on her shoulder made her look into Haruto's eyes. He was very serious. "Trap or not, we cannot back out now. We have to see this through to the end." Sakura nodded and turned back to the bridge. Yamato knew that he couldn't afford to waste time. "I have questions. I'm rather short on time, so please be quick about it. I've risked my life from Orochimaru to get here without letting him know," Kabuto reasoned. "Tell me the location of your hideout and Uchiha Sasuke." Yamato decided. Naruto fought the urge to slap his forehead. Freaking son of a, can he be any more obvious? Kabuto was silent for a few moments, thinking over his answer. Right now, we're in a hideout on a small island on a lake to the north. We will move in 3 days. Uchiha Sasuke is there as well. Kabuto looked around nervously. Sasori-sama, about the task you ordered me to do. Crap, I don't know what he's talking about, Yamato sweated in his disguise. Even after his reincarnation, Orochimaru uses a jutsu to apply a protector to the cellular specimens from his discarded body, and therefore I was unable to analyze the cellular data, Kabuto explained, supposedly about the task Sasori had him do. I see. He really did not. He's taking things carefully. Almost too carefully, Haruto whispered to Sakura. Being overcautious is better in this case, isn't it? Haruto shook his head minutely, eyes never moving from the two figures on the bridge. If he ends up being too careful, he risks arousing suspicion. That might complicate things, he explained, tips from when he was traveling with Jiraiya coming to mind. Back on the bridge, Kabuto started fidgeting. So please give me the object we talked about, as I can't stay any longer. I'll be killed if Orochimaru finds out, he muttered nervously. Very well, Yamato agreed, silently reaching for a kunai. But before he could move, he and Kabuto both froze with expressions of shock as Orochimaru appeared behind the silver-haired nin, a vaguely amused look on his face. A snake wrapped around Kabuto, as Orochimaru chuckled. Very interesting conversation. Mind if I join in? Naruto vehemently cursed inside his head. I knew it was almost too good to be true. Bastard was listening in on the conversation. Kabuto acted quickly, the cloak flying in the air as he escaped and backed off with Yamato. Bastard was listening in on the conversation. I almost didn't make it in time, but thanks to you taking out that kunai, Sasori-sama, I was. Something struck out as odd to Naruto. Hang on, only 3 years ago, this guy was as loyal as a dog to Orochimaru. Why would he switch sides? Something isn't adding up here. There's no way a guy like Orochimaru would be fooled for so long by a spy. What the hell is going on? On the bridge, Yamato breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks to that amazing coincidence, he misunderstood my action. He doesn't seem to have seen through the disguise yet. Yamato gulped as his eyes narrowed in thought. Now that Orochimaru's here though, what should I do? That outfit, it reminds me of the old days, Sasori, Orochimaru stated in a slightly nostalgic tone. You followed him here? Yamato asked, trying to buy some time. The Sannin smirked cruelly. Don't be so rude. I just wanted to thank you for sending me the boy. I was able to make such good use of him. Whenever I developed new techniques, I have to test it out on 100 live subjects, but thanks to this boy's medical ninjutsu, I was able to use the same test subject again and again. Orochimaru smirked, his eyes never shifting from Yamato's disguised form. I had been running a bit low, you see. Naruto's eyes narrowed. In his position, Yamato won't be able to give me the signal. I would have to act on my own. If I have to act, I have to wait for an opening. Yamato, on the other hand, was contemplating his move. Damn, there's no way I can stand against Orochimaru on my own. Even with Kabuto, my fighting style will give me away. And as I am, I can't signal Naruto to move in. I hope he spots an opening and moves in, otherwise I'll be forced to give myself away. Naruto saw Kabuto activate a chakra scalpel and raise his hand high. Alright, let's go. Yamato, who was observing Kabuto closely, almost didn't react in time when Kabuto swung towards him. Only for a hand to grip his wrist an inch away from Sasori. Even Kabuto couldn't hide his expression of sheer shock when he found out who the owner of the hand was. Naruto wasted no time in slapping a palm on the medic's chest and teleporting him away into the barrier. Naruto just couldn't resist a smirk upon seeing Orochimaru's stupefied reaction to his spy being whisked away like that. The guy blinked dumbly at him, as if he couldn't even comprehend what just happened. Naruto allowed his smirk to grow into a vicious grin. Mission accomplished. If Naruto had to describe his position right now, he would describe it as being remarkably similar to those cliché cowboy movies that Temari once had a liking for. Standing on a bridge, facing down a notorious villain, with breeze blowing every now and then with the ominous creaking of the wood of the bridge. Naruto almost shivered in excitement. He knew the mission's parameters, but the thrill of a damn good fight was calling to him. The dumb look on Orochimaru was gone in a split second, replaced by one of barely restrained fury. Naruto was all too happy to gloat in his face. How's it hanging? Orochimaru's eyes narrowed to the point they really looked like slitted eyes of a reptile. What did you do? Wow, Naruto had to give the guy props. He was so obsessed with snakes he almost perfectly managed to copy the way they hissed with a normal human tongue. Naruto gave a small shrug. Oh, nothing, just whisked him away. We have a few questions we think he might know the answers to. A cold smirk appeared on the Sanin's face. Kabuto will not break. Naruto was all too happy to gloat in his face. Then you clearly don't know Ibiki or Yamanaka Inoichi as well as you think. Naruto spread his arms slightly away from his thighs, an expression of mock hurt aimed towards Orochimaru. You know, I at least expected a nice greeting. You are the most polite of the Sannin. I'm actually disappointed. Orochimaru just glared at the blonde. He was not anticipating that Kabuto would be captured so easily. Then again, almost anything was possible with Hiraishin no Jutsu. He knew how Kabuto worked for Danzo before he did for Sasori, and for Sasori before himself. He dare say Kabuto was the best spy in all of the elemental nations, for he was never once suspected of working for another party. To be honest, Orochimaru was playing curious when Kabuto told him he was supposed to meet Sasori at the bridge. Of course, it wasn't as if Orochimaru was going to just sit and do nothing. Betraying Akatsuki hadn't gone well for him, and now those bastards were after him just as much they were after the Jinchuriki, if not more. It wasn't as if this was an inconvenience. Akatsuki was never able to find out where his bases were. It was just plain annoying and a sting to his pride that he, one of the Sannin, had to resort to hiding. He would never admit to anyone but himself, but he was no match for Akatsuki's leader. Which was why he saw this as the perfect opportunity to kill his old partner and put a dent in the organization. Sasori's death meant the loss of a precious spy network for the Akatsuki, and it would make their work much harder to find anyone. So he tagged along. He knew just how to beat his old partner, and he had been itching for a fight for quite a while now. Therefore, it stood to reason as to why he was completely caught off guard. He wasn't expecting Namikaze to suddenly appear and teleport his spy away. The fact that Sasori had yet to do anything meant he wasn't Sasori at all. Why don't you drop the disguise? It's clear that you are working with Naruto-kun here. And call those rats out. They're not really hiding. Naruto heard the wood falling apart behind him, and a flicker of surprise passed through Orochimaru's eyes. Yamato came to stand beside him, his left arm giving a signal to Sakura and Haruto. The two jumped out of their hiding places and landed behind the two Jonin. Orochimaru smirked as his gaze landed upon Haruto. Oh. I don't know there was another red-headed Uzumaki alive. My congratulations to you for finding a member of your long-lost clan, Naruto-kun, he said with a tip of his head, a knowing glint in his eyes. Naruto had to give the guy credit. Orochimaru was the only person who could be this polite and condescending at the same time. Then his brain caught up to the words. Another red-headed Uzumaki? Another? Does he know of another Uzumaki, or is he just talking about my cousin? Deciding to put a pin on it for now, he stood straight. Thanks, now if you'll excuse us, we'll be on our way. Orochimaru's smirk widened. Now, why are you in such a hurry? We have met after 3 long years, after all. The air suddenly saturated with heavy killing intent. Everyone stiffened up, except for Orochimaru. He was still standing in that deceptively open stance. Naruto weighed his options. On one hand, if his team grabbed onto him, he could whisk them away before Orochimaru closed the distance between them. But on the other hand, this was a good opportunity to try and get some info out of the Sannin. Naruto kept his voice light. Sure. What do you want to talk about? That infuriating smirk remained on the snake's face. Don't you want to inquire about the well-being of your former teammate? Pretty sure he's doing just fine, Naruto returned. And how would you know that? Naruto smirked. Now that is somewhat of a long answer. I really should get going now though. Why, I never thought you would be so afraid of me, Naruto-kun. And didn't he look just delighted when he said it? Naruto took a step back. It's not that I'm afraid. You just haven't given me anything that could make me stay here any longer. Inside though, his brain would running at speeds that would put the Hiraishin to shame. This could be a really good opportunity to kill the guy. Orochimaru's demise would at least make Sasuke think a little about returning to Konoha. Plus, there was a possibility that if he pressed the Sannin hard enough, he would eventually go running back to his hole. With a nice, pretty tracking seal on him. Yamato whispered to him. Naruto, we should move. Orochimaru outright grinned. Please don't listen to him, Naruto-kun. I'm extremely interested in finding out how my former teammate trained you in these 3 years. The killing intent hadn't reduced at all. Naruto was sure that Haruto and Sakura were sweating by now. And he had a feeling as to what was going to happen in the next few moments. Orochimaru wasn't a guy who took no for an answer. Naruto made a show of shuddering. Thanks, but no thanks. Your interest in guys younger than you is extremely disturbing to me. And I'm already married. As he was saying it, he made motions with his left hand so the others could see. Fall back. The Sannin's eye twitched a little, but the grin remained. Looks like I'll have to persuade you. He lauded the reaction of his teammates. They jumped back as soon as Orochimaru closed the distance between him and Naruto, a fist heading right at his face. But Naruto was faster, his left hand coming up in a perfect block. Orochimaru didn't falter at all, and brought up his knee in an attempt to knock the wind out of him. Naruto used his right hand to slow the knee, as well as pushing himself off it and putting some distance between him and Orochimaru. The Sannin made the mistake of flickering his eyes to the seal that now adorned his thigh. Naruto was already behind him, landing a wicked 540 kick to the side of the Sannin's head, sending him flying right from the side of the bridge and down. Naruto didn't waste time following him. The force behind that kick would have snapped the neck of most of the shinobi. But Jiraiya had told him that Orochimaru was one slippery bastard. He was right. Orochimaru had just finished setting his neck in place when Naruto was upon him. Orochimaru blocked the kick, and they settled in a furious bout of taijutsu. The Sannin looked gleeful even as he avoided the attacks more narrowly than he liked. Excellent, Naruto-kun. Your speed surprises me even now. Naruto dropped low, then spun on his hand to land a kick on the side of the Sannin's knee. The fact that you're surprised means you're slipping. Looks like someone hasn't been keeping up with their training. The kick caused Orochimaru to dissolve into mud. Naruto narrowed his eyes, then spun around to catch a sword heading for his head. Oh, I've been training just fine. Orochimaru grinned as blood dripped from Naruto's hand from catching the Kusanagi. With the Kyuubi inside him, he won't die, but he would slow down just enough for Orochimaru to land a critical strike. But the Sannin's eyes widened and he barely jumped back in time before Naruto exploded. The shockwave launched him back, and he flipped to land on his feet. The landing would have been perfect had Naruto not flashed right beside him and cut his arm off. Orochimaru let out a shout that was more of surprise than pain. Thankfully, it was his left arm. The Kusanagi was still clutched in his right. Naruto gave no quarter. He let loose a couple of shuriken, and just for assurance, added something on top of that. Kage Shuriken no Jutsu. 5 shuriken turned into 50, and they peppered Orochimaru's body until he resembled one of those wooden targets Naruto used to practice on when he was particularly frustrated by something. The Sannin fell over onto his back, an expression of shock on his face. By all accounts, the man should be dead due to how deep the shuriken were buried, but Orochimaru once again proved him wrong. Naruto began moving as soon as he saw the man's mouth moving, because the mouth of a corpse shouldn't be moving at all. Dog bird. Futon, Kaze no Ken. Wind style, wind fist. He began charging his right fist with wind chakra, waiting for just the right moment. In a disgusting way that completely ruined the possibility of him eating any food for the next few hours, Orochimaru climbed out of the mouth. First came the hands, spreading the mouth impossibly wide. Then came the head, covered in fluids that Naruto really didn't care to know about. Just as enough of his body came out to be a sure target, Naruto punched forward with all his strength. Orochimaru lifted his head up, a mocking grin on his face. Just kid dash. He wasn't allowed to finish his sentence, as highly compressed wine flew at him and right through him, creating a gaping hole in the middle of his body. His expression became amusingly identical to that of the corpse he just came out of. Naruto smirked. Spit out another body. I dare you. Orochimaru scowled heavily, and proceeded to do just that. However, this time, there were no theatrics as he practically jumped out of the mouth, missing the wind by a hair's breadth. Naruto whistled as he leaped away. You have got to be the most disgusting motherfucker I've had the displeasure of meeting. Orochimaru just chuckled as he continued to swing the Kusanagi against Naruto, who parried it with wind chakra-laced kunai. You are more crass than that fool Jiraiya, and that's saying something. Naruto moved in for a stab, and wasn't surprised when Orochimaru literally bent his body out of the way as if there were no bones inside him. Oh yeah? How did 3 years with your favorite boy toy go for you? Did he give monosyllabic answers for everything? Up on the bridge, the remaining team was closely observing the battle. Sakura had wide eyes full of shock in them. She knew she really shouldn't be surprised that Naruto had gotten this good. He had taken care of Kakashi-sensei like it was nothing, but Orochimaru was a whole another level. To force Orochimaru of the Sannin into a corner not once, but twice, she didn't have any words to say. Damn, it's like that time when Naruto was up against Jiraiya-sama, Haruto whistled in appreciation. Yamato couldn't quite hide his surprise at that. Naruto pushed Jiraiya-sama in a fight? And beat him, Haruto added nonchalantly. He then glanced at Sakura, who was looking at him with her mouth open. He chuckled and gently pushed her chin up with his hand. Close your mouth, Sakura. Flies aren't that tasty. Turning to Yamato, he asked. If Naruto manages to kill him, will it be good for us? Yamato's mind was working at a furious pace. If Naruto does manage to kill Orochimaru, it would be quite beneficial to Konoha. One less person to worry about who's concerned with destroying their village. But the mission was already complete, and he tried to see the situation from Naruto's standpoint. Naruto very well knew that the mission was complete, so why was he engaging the rogue Sannin? Trying to buy his team time to get to a safe distance? Or was there something else in his mind? We'll wait for Naruto. It looks like he has the situation handled. If it becomes too tough for him, then we'll step in, he decided at last. Below them, the fight was escalating. Orochimaru had once again substituted with a mud clone, but Naruto was right beside the original in a flash step. Spinning on his heel, he grabbed the back of the Sannin's head and bashed him face first into the rocky wall. Orochimaru grunted in pain. His nose was broken, but before he could use body flicker to get away, a foot smashed into his chest and sent him tumbling through the air to the other side. The Sannin flipped to his feet and glared at Naruto, who merely smirked in a self-satisfied manner. The blonde brat really had improved in the last few years, enough to give him a challenge. Orochimaru resisted the urge to grin, despite the fact that he was the one getting pushed. It had been a long time since anyone except his former teammates and the Akatsuki leader could give him a worthy fight. He closed the distance between them once more. Yes, he hissed with glee, show me what you can do. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Orochimaru was enjoying their fight. Not that he couldn't take the same claim as well. A good fight always got his blood pumping. It was just that, he didn't know why the Sannin was fighting him. An obvious reason could be that he wanted to assess what he was capable of right now and then catalog it later so he could teach Sasuke to counter his moves. But it wasn't as if Naruto had gone all out. He was still refraining from using the Rasengan and its variants. He would stick to the regular Rasengan for now. And he really needed to get that damn sword out of Orochimaru's hands. His Jonin vest had already received 2 cuts from it. The sword came from above, and he used a move that Jiraiya had taught him. The move was particularly useful to disarm opponents of their weapons. He curled his right hand into a fist, with the bend of his index finger protruding from it. He moved and jammed the finger onto the underside of Orochimaru's right wrist just as it was coming down, causing the Sannin let go of the sword with a surprised grunt. A well-placed palm thrust sent him back skidding a few feet. Naruto smirked as he held the sword from its handle. "You wanna see a magic trick? I have a sword in my hands," he waved it, "and now I have no sword." Indeed, the sword vanished from his hands, almost as if he never had it in the first place. Orochimaru snarled viciously. It had taken him a long time to acquire Kusanagi no Tsurugi, and now this troublesome blonde had taken it right out of his hands. He hissed out, his patience dangerously thin by now. "Where is it?" The blonde bastard had the nerve to put on a show of being confused. "What, your sword?" "Yes." Naruto put his hands up. "Whoa! Calm down, man. I sent it to, somewhere," he finished with a shit-eating grin. Above them, all 3 jumped when a sword suddenly appeared right in front of them. Sakura managed to stammer out, "That's Orochimaru's sword." Yamato picked it up, looking at it in part awe and part shock. "Kusanagi no Tsurugi, it's one of the legendary blades of the world, even more than the 7 blades of the mist." Haruto peered at the sword from his position. "What's so special about this sword?" Yamato turned to him, a smirk on his face. "The blade is coated with a poison that has no counter. And it can extend beyond its length, any length that the user wants." And Naruto took it from Orochimaru. Yamato turned back to the fight with a smile. "Guess it's coming back with us to Konoha now." Down below, Orochimaru snarled, his patience and rage snapping like an eruption from a volcano. He took a deep breath, but before he could bend down and unleash one of his deadliest techniques, Naruto was right in his face, so fast that he wasn't able to block in time. The fist crashed into his nose, sending him flying back. He substituted with a rock that took the second hit. A small sense of confusion hit him in the haze of dizziness. That wasn't the Hiraishin. How is he moving so fast without it? But Naruto was right there, again. A kick literally to his ass sent him in the air. Naruto whipped out 7 of his special kunai and threw 6 of them right at Orochimaru. Just as they were about to reach him, he flashed. Hiraishin, Tengaku Chuman. Flying Thunder God, Heaven Sequence. He flashed to the first one and slashed. He flashed to the second one and slashed. As Orochimaru went higher, Naruto flashed to the kunai closest to the Sannin and slashed. 6 slashes later, he flashed right behind the Sannin and stabbed Orochimaru right in the back of his neck. The force behind the swing sent him crashing to the ground. Naruto landed, keeping an eye out for another body coming out through the mouth. His kunai buried themselves into the ground behind him. Gotta hand it to him. He really does shed skin like a snake. Sure enough, Orochimaru leapt out of the corpse's mouth, an expression of rage on his face. Never in his life had he had to use his customized substitution jutsu so many times in a fight. His reserves were rapidly depleting, and judging by the aggravating smirk on the blonde's face, he knew it too. Sunny Eye Jashu. Snakes came out of his sleeves and raced towards Naruto, who cut them down with clean, precise slashes. Anko-sensei used to do the same until I figured out how to cut things with wind, Naruto revealed in a tone that said, "You are an idiot if you think this would work on me." But Orochimaru was smiling now, looking particularly pleased. It was almost as if the earlier anger at losing his sword was forgotten. So Anko-chan trained you, did she? That would explain certain elements of your taijutsu, Naruto-kun. Tell me, how is she? Naruto smiled back, but it was all teeth. She's just fine. You on the other hand, are not going to be. Orochimaru grinned as well. Won't I? He then bent down, and to Naruto's complete disgust and that of his team, puked out thousands of snakes that rapidly began closing the distance between them and Naruto. Naruto was informed by Jiraiya that this was one of Orochimaru's signature jutsus, Mandara no Jin. 10,000 snakes indeed, Naruto thought as he created a shadow clone. Both of them vanished in a flash step, appearing on Orochimaru's either sides. The snakes split, one half going for the clone and the other going for Naruto. Naruto's fingers flicked out a seal card from behind, and just as the snakes converged on him, he vanished once more. The clone had flash-stepped at the same time, going right into Orochimaru's space. Hands in a ram seal, he activated a paralysis barrier, freezing him and a portion of the snakes, along with Orochimaru. The Sannin grit his teeth as he tried to move, knowing one of the Naruto was still somewhere. The original appeared back at his old spot, and palming the card, he slammed it on the ground. An array sprang forward from the card, forming a seal design until it stopped, circling Orochimaru and the clone. Naruto smirked and pulsed his chakra, activating it. The seal patterns glowed orange, and Orochimaru realized too late what Naruto was intending on doing. Boom! A spectacular explosion lit up the grounds, the pillar of fire going high up into the sky. That seal card was one of the ideas Naruto got from reading manga about an old guy who could use fire in a way no ninja could. Haruto, Sakura, and Yamato used their hands to shield themselves from the shockwave. What the hell is that? Sakura managed to scream out, loud enough to be heard. A sealing technique, Haruto answered just as loud, grinning stupidly. He was inspired. Naruto, who had flashed away, observed the explosion with appreciation and pride. The Hellfire card was one of his favorites when it came to blowing things, namely a large number of enemies on a battlefield, up. If Orochimaru survived that, then it meant Naruto could finish things up here. There is no way that guy has enough chakra left to stay in the fight, not against an Uzumaki and definitely not against the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Naruto would always win in a battle of attrition. Naruto flashed to the kunai that were buried in the ground after his Hiraishin attack. Everything was on fire, but there was no sign of Orochimaru. Naruto kept glancing around, trying to find the elusive Sannin. There was no way Orochimaru would let Naruto think that he scared him off. His neck buzzed, and he jumped back just in time, for Orochimaru suddenly burst from the ground in front of him, poised as if he was going to stab him just with his hand. Naruto landed a good distance away. He grinned. Nice job. You're the first one who survived my Hellfire card. Orochimaru was panting as he gained his footing. It was extremely fortunate for him that he still had enough chakra to spit out one last body, otherwise he really would have been killed. Damn that clone, paralyzing him in place. He would have pulled off a substitution at the last moment if not for the barrier. The clone had vanished the moment explosion took place, and he had taken the full brunt of the explosion for a full second before escaping. Not only did he shed skin once more, but he also performed Moguragakure no Jutsu without hand seals. Not a big deal, but it took more chakra than it did with hand seals, and he didn't like that. He had good reason to stick to Tai and Kenjutsu against Naruto. Damn him. At this rate I will certainly lose. He doesn't even look winded, damn Uzumaki genes. Damn Kyuubi. It's in my best interest if I retreat for now. Before he could run away, Naruto was back and slashing at him with kunai. Orochimaru contorted his body into shapes not unlike a snake to evade the attacks. He was getting exhausted, and not only that, but he was getting weaker. This body won't last for long. I need to get Sasuke's as soon as I can. He flipped back to put some distance and hopefully by some time to mold chakra for a body flicker, but there was suddenly a three-pronged kunai mere inches from his chest, and Naruto was nowhere to be seen. But Orochimaru knew just where the blonde was, and he was too slow. Again. Something brutally slammed into his back, rotating at high speed, grinding his back painfully. Naruto grinned as he pushed the Rasengan further, throwing Orochimaru away due to the extreme amount of blunt force the jutsu had. The Sannin was sent flying a few dozen feet, finally coming to rest on the ground, motionless. Orochimaru grit his teeth as his nerves were sent into a frenzy. That Rasengan had completely destroyed his spine, broken his ribcage, and it was excruciating, even for his pain tolerance. Oh, and best not forget the kunai lodged into the center of his chest, sticking out of his back. He hated to admit it, but Naruto had won this fight. There was only one way to get out of here now, and it was tricky, but he was sure he could get the timing just right. He could hear the footsteps closing in. Carefully, very carefully, he began to mold his chakra. It wouldn't take much time, but he needed to get his timing right for the second part. Naruto crouched low. "It's time to say goodbye to this world, asshole," Naruto muttered as he raised his kunai, prepared to cut the bastard's head off. He wondered what Jiraiya and Tsunade would say when he told them of Orochimaru's demise. Orochimaru chuckled. "Too late, Naruto-kun." And then he was gone in a swirl of leaves. Naruto blinked, then snorted, not at all surprised at what just happened. For someone who hates Konoha, he sure does like our style. He stood up, just as the others landed behind him. "Naruto?" There was a hint of concern in Yamato's voice that Naruto waved away. "I'm fine." Orochimaru got away? In his condition? Naruto scoffed as he began to collect his kunai. "He's a true snake, Sakura. I wouldn't be surprised if he just spit out another body after arriving where he meant to go." Yamato stepped forward, a serious frown on his face. "We should get going, Naruto. We have finished our mission." Naruto let out a sigh, looking over the destroyed grounds. "Actually, I had something else in mind." He turned around. "Care to hear it?" "What is it?" Yamato decided to hear it out. "I forced Orochimaru to retreat, which means there's a 99% possibility that he's gone back to his base. What say we check it out?" Yamato shook his head. Tsunade-sama emphasized that this was only supposed to be reconnaissance mission, Naruto. "We have what we need, and we should go back." Naruto raised an eyebrow. He knew that ANBU followed strict rules, but this was a golden opportunity. This is a golden opportunity to get an insight on Orochimaru's plans, both present and the future. Do you really want to let it go? If you're worried about Kabuto, don't worry. He's not going anywhere. Yamato pursed his lips in thought. As a former ANBU, he knew the importance of sticking to mission parameters. They were there for a reason, one of them being keeping the lives of the shinobi at minimal risk. He himself had led many missions, and he could count on one hand the number of missions in which he had to go beyond the mission parameters. Sometimes it ended well, and sometimes it didn't. There had to be a solid motive for a team leader to extend the number of mission objectives. Yamato couldn't fault Naruto for following Orochimaru to his base. Naruto was right, the plans they could get their hands on could possibly keep Konoha leaps ahead of Orochimaru. But Yamato wasn't a novice. He had experience in reading between the lines. He also heard what Naruto didn't say. There was a high possibility that they would find Uchiha Sasuke. He looked around to his team. Haruto and Sakura and himself hadn't participated in the fight, so they weren't drained at all. Naruto, on the other hand, had so much chakra from what he could sense with his limited capability, that he could still fire A-rank jutsu for hours before getting tired. And he wasn't injured. His team was full of energy, and they had motive. The question was, is it the right thing to do at this time?